for this Sunday asked after you got married, he said, "Are you and Pam going to have kids?" So,
Yeah. We
apparently
got
the answer
3 of hers. My wife's daughter and her 4-year-old have lived with us since May, but I didn't know when I let her move in she was a little child. So now I have 4 women. That sounds like my house. I'm the professional toilet supplier. I have kids living at home too. When I go to Costco, they say more.
To order. The first thing we're going to do is roll call, and Trustee Lawrence. Here. Trustee Mayo. Here. Trustee Hanson.
Here.
Trustee Durkee. Here. And Deborah Mason is here, so we have a full board, and we're going to stand and pledge the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to report on our closed session. And I would like to apologize to Marie Gill. I can't read this again. I'm not really sure that name. Sasha Hickman and Christina Gutierrez. We'd already had our open and closed our closed session for our public comment for closed session time. So we will not be hearing your statements tonight during open session because we've already finished closed session, and I will give the report out of closed session. On item 3.1, we agreed to settle on the case of Doe Wolf versus Mount Diablo. On 3.2, the board received information. On 3.3, on 2 possible cases, the board received information on one and gave direction on the other. 3.4, the board gave direction. 3.5, the board received information. 3.6, we actually voted to not readmit the student at this time. And on 3.7, it was just information for the board. So now we are on public comment. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education of the Mount Diablo Unified School District that is not on this agenda. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers. Of the 3-minute limit may be shortened. If there are multiple speakers on any one subject, the public comment period may be moved to the end of the meeting. Speakers are not allowed to yield their time. During the general public comment, we have, how many comments? We're trying to determine if we're going to be able to go with the whole 3 minutes. Looking under public comment. Okay. Yeah, any of the public speakers cards that were on 7.2, we closed that at 5:30 or 6 o'clock when we went into closed session. So having said that, I want you guys to know that when we take public comment, the board can do one of 3 things. We can refer it to staff, we can ask clarifying questions, or we can put it on our next agenda. So if we're not responding to an item that you're bringing up during public comment, it doesn't mean we're not listening or that we don't care. It simply means we're following the rules that the board is supposed to operate under. So having said that, our first public speaker will be Ava Farnadi.
Good evening, President Mason, members of the board, Superintendent Meyer, and audience. My name is Oliver Hadi, and I am a student from Northgate High School. And I am here to encourage you to pass a safe haven resolution with language that protects all students from immigration law enforcement activities on or around missing property. As a first-generation Iranian American woman, xenophobia is not a foreign concept to me. However, the recent nationwide attacks on immigrants are. In 1979, when my parents fled Iran, they faced a great deal of phobia and xenophobic language. In 2017, millions of child immigrants are met with the same hostile language and discrimination at school. As a co-founder of Bolds, a program aimed at serving the girls at Oak Grove Middle School, it is no surprise that our members have felt the negative impact from the recent immigration policies. Our group is fueled by diversity and acceptance of our differences. So when a hijabi girl from Yemen recounted the times she has been bullied for her religion with words such as terrorist, it broke my heart, for I've heard this same account from my very own brother. My brother's darker pigmentation and blatant Middle Eastern features ensured that he, like the hijabi girl, would be bullied for his ethnic background, with words such as terrorist and ISIS. Recently, these verbal attacks have been multiplied because of this wave of xenophobia around the country. And seeing my brother return from his school, Foothill, in tears, concerned for his safety, confuses and worries me that there has been no action put in place. My family should not be told to go back to our country because we look or speak a certain way. Because the United States is our country, as it is for the millions of immigrants that seek toleration and democracy in this melting pot. One's immigration status does not credit nor discredit his or her place in the United States, let alone at schools. As Eli Wiesel, a Holocaust survivor, once said, "No human being is illegal." Thank you.
There seems to be some confusion tonight. That might be our fault, not your fault. If I call you up during public comment and you want to speak on the resolution, that's on our agenda. So that you would speak on 9.2 when that comes up. So if I call you and that's what you're here for, just let me know and then we'll take your public comment at that time. So the next public comment card I have is for Laura Easton. And is it for the same topic?
Yeah.
Okay, let me write on here 9.2.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. Okay, any other general public comment? Okay. So, because I'm getting a sense that there's a big interest in 9.2, which we're glad about, I'm going to suggest that we do the appointments first and then do the recognitions and resolutions. Does that work for you, Dr. Wentz? Okay.
President Hansen, Board, I would like to recommend to you for the position of Elementary Vice Principal, Lourdes Beleche. Lourdes comes to us with a Bachelor's of Arts from UC Berkeley in Chicano Studies. She has an Administrative Services credential and a Multiple Subjects credential. She currently is a teacher at Cambridge Elementary and has been there since 1997. She also, we were very proud to say, was our 2015-16 Teacher of the Year and represented us at the county awards. So it is without hesitation that I recommend Lourdes Beleche for Vice Principal, Cambridge Elementary.
Madam President, it is my honor and pleasure to recommend that the board approve the appointment of Lourdes Beleche as a vice principal in the Mount Diablo School District.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Oh no, we do this at my other meeting when we do it out loud. We do this on the computer. We will now vote. It would have been quicker my way, Lourdes, so we're good.
Seconded, Durkee.
much. All right.
Would you like to come on up and say something?
I would like to come on up and say something. Dr. Meyer, our trustees, and audience here, I really am grateful for this opportunity that you are providing me, and I'm looking forward to the transition in this into this new area of my career. I want to thank my husband and my 2 children that I've put a lot with me, and the administration, which has truly supported me, and my colleagues at Cambridge Elementary School. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, President Mason, I would like to, and board, I would like to present our recommendations for summer school administrators. And what I would like to do is read them all off, and if they are here, if they could stand, and if they're not, we can certainly, we'll certainly go and vote on them as a block. So to start, for our preschool, for Robert Shearer Preschool, Cheryl Colano, and Nadia Visaya will be having a job share. For Shadelands, we are recommending Jenny Vargas. For elementary school at Sunrise, we are recommending Jenny Vargas. And Bel Air Elementary, Jennifer Sagendorf. For Cambridge Elementary, Tanisha Hurley. For El Monte Elementary, Megan Gemma. For Fair Oaks Elementary, Jessica Pozos. For Gregory Gardens Elementary, Cheryl Colano, she's everywhere. Meadow Homes Elementary, Sandra Wilbanks. For Shore Acres Elementary, Kathy Chan. For Sun Terrace Elementary, it is a job share with Chris Martin Meyer and Debbie Birnbaum. For Woodside Elementary, Mignon Perkins. For Wren Avenue Elementary, Sherry Scripter. For middle school, El Dorado, Susan Shee. For Riverview Middle School, Eric Wood. For Oak Grove Middle School, Seth Feldman. For Valley View Middle School, Scott Bushnell. And at the high school, College Park, we're recommending Joseph Alvarez with Vice Principals Aileen Lee and David Sauceda doing a job share. Concord High School, Kelly Egan with Ronald Little as Vice Principal. At Families First and Olympic High School, Lindsay Castellano and Rick Correa as Vice Principal. For Riverview Middle School, again, 4 weeks, Eric Wood is back, and Selema Moss will be his Vice Principal during that time. Ignacio Valley High School, Kia Nesbitt with Brooke Panka as Vice Principal. At Bridge, Ursula Reed will continue throughout the year. And at Loma Vista Adult Center, Tricia Ouellette. And that concludes the block of summer school administrators.
Need a motion?
So I'll move to accept the list of administrators for summer school programs as presented by the superintendent. Second.
We're still figuring out public comment tonight, guys. Okay, that passed 5-0-0. And now what I'm gonna do is, because there was this confusion about who was here at closed session, so anyone that had the 7 point, whatever it was, we're not taking, but we are taking ones that are under just public comment, so we're gonna reopen it, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're gonna hold you to 2 minutes, and we'll start with Sasha Hickman.
Hi, good evening. I have 2 children at Rocket Ship, and I would like to just make a couple comments about how they feel based on where Mount Diablo School District put us for right now. Starting off the year, the school was surrounded by fences, making them feel like second-class citizens, being segregated away from the other school. They've had to play on grass with potholes, dog feces, large dogs run without leashes, and people come up and say, oh, well, Ayers closes at this time, not knowing that there's actually another school there. And as a matter of fact, today 3 large dogs were running loose and came to where our kids were playing on the playground. We have to use half of the blacktop out there, and the kids feel it. They feel the community there does not want them there, and they feel it. And the fences, I saw, on Facebook, someone actually made a comment that the fences were taken down, like it was a bad thing. They wanted our kids to be separated and segregated. Our families, we spent an entire day trying to make it more comfortable for them, putting little plants and stuff. And we were told to take it down. Those kids, they helped put that. They physically helped plant the plants and do that to try to make this area nicer for them. So I would just like to ask that please let Rocket Ship thrive. And the kids.
Veronica Alvarado. And after Veronica will be Aisha Ford.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jessica Bravo. I'll be translating for Veronica. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Verónica Alvarado. Soy mamá de Camila Alvarado.
Good evening. My name is Veronica Alvarado. I'm the mother of Camila Alvarado.
Mi sentir por la situación en que estamos a un lado de la escuela Ayers Elemental es de un total discriminación.
My feelings about our situation next to Ayers Elementary is one of total discrimination.
La cual no se me hace justo porque nuestros niños no cuentan con un lugar para salir al recreo.
Which to me does not seem just because our kids do not have a place to go out to for recess.
Se supone que tienen que respetar el tiempo de los niños de ambas escuelas para poder usar el área de juegos, el cual la escuela Ayers no lo está respetando.
Supposedly, we are supposed to respect the time of the kids from each school so that they're able to use the area for their games, which Ayers Elementary is not respecting.
Y eso me consta porque en varias ocasiones yo he estado presente y lo he vivido al igual que los niños.
And I am a witness because I've seen it various times and I have experienced it the same way as the kids have.
Todos los niños merecen ser tratados con respeto e igualdad.
All of the kids deserve to be treated with respect and equality.
No importa el origen de donde sean.
Their origin does not matter.
Esta noche me dirijo a todos ustedes, pero en especial a la doctora Maya. Yo sé que ella no es de un mal corazón, yo sé que ella puede hacer algo por nuestros niños.
Tonight I'm speaking to all of you, but especially Nellie Meyer, because I know that you have a good heart and you can work for our students.
Yo solo les pido igualdad total para todos los niños.
All I ask is equality, total equality for all of the kids. Thank you.
Gracias.
Followed by Kelly.
One, two, three.
I am a rocket ship, rocketeer, at home, at school, and in my community. I am driven by my purpose to be fearless in pursuit of my futuro. I am respectful of myself, others, and the environment. I am responsible for my learning, actions, and achievements. I am empathetic to my world. I am persistent in attaining excellence. Together we're all rocket ship, rocketeers.
In addition, I'd just like to conclude that 63 years ago, the Supreme Court of our land made the declaration that we conclude in the field of public education the doctrine of separate but equal has no place in our public schools. Tonight, I'm disappointed and outraged as the vice principal of a school that our children are subjected to unequal facilities. The Mount Diablo School District had the unique opportunity to learn from the adversity of our country's past, and instead of watering the seeds presented from such adversity, I have seen that we have been chosen, and you all have chosen, to literally crush the life from the gardens growing in our school's backyard. Malcolm X once said, "There may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time where we fail to protest." Tonight, our families, our children are here, and we are protesting. Hear me loud and clear.
Marie Gill. Followed by Morgan Wood.
Thank you to the board, President Deborah Mason, for allowing us to speak public comment. My name is Marie Gill. Rocket Ship Education is appealing the Mount Diablo Unified School District's formal response to the uniform complaints that I filed on behalf of Rocket Ship Futura Academy on the 12th of December. Rocket Ship disputes the district's findings that insufficient evidence exists to establish all three of Rocket Ship's allegations. For example, the district's report claims that the facilities use agreement between the parties only obligates the district to deliver a site and the facilities to our school that is compliant with applicable law, and that the district did so, even though it is clear, both from correspondence between the parties and from the document itself, that the facility delivered by the district to Rocket Ship never complied with the county's health department laws for food service. In addition, the document required the district to give Rocket Ship access to the surgery, which it never provided. Rocket Ship is appealing the district's formal response because it is legally insufficient on at least two grounds. One, although the district investigator found that there is sufficient evidence to conclude that Rocket Ship Wazoo students are being denied access to the Ayers Blacktop per the terms of the agreement, the district fails to offer any resolution to this violation, as required by law and your own uniform complaint policy. It states the final decision shall include the findings and the disposition of this complaint. There is no question that this district wants to force us into further litigation rather than negotiate amicably towards a resolution. Thank you.
Morgan? Yes. Okay, and you'll be followed by Jason. Okay.
Good evening. I get a little nervous in front of that, so excuse me. I wanted to address some of the speakers from the last meeting whom I heard talking about community. They were members of the Ayers school community, and they were referring to pushing out Rocket Ship, which they felt was an invasion. I want to acknowledge the fact that sharing the space has not been easy for either party. I see that. But I feel like the reception and reception of Rocketship is being addressed from the wrong way. Generalizations are a human instinct. We make them when we are afraid. We make them when we don't have facts. I've seen a lot of people on both sides make assumptions that are not based on fact. When people on social media converse about this situation, there have been people who said, have you walked into Rocketship Futuro Academy and asked them what they're about? Have you walked in to see what's going on? And the immediate reaction is, I don't need to know. I don't need to see. I don't need to believe their lies. It is an automatic assumption of the worst. And it's not doing justice to either school or the rest of the community. I would challenge those in the rest of the Mount Diablo district and in the immediate Ayers area to really think about the meaning of community and how we can work together. Rocketship wants its own space, and God willing, we will achieve that for the families that are writing everything on this hope that this school is providing for them. My own son included, enrolled in the school, a better future. And nobody here is at war. We're not here to fight. We're not here to accuse anybody. We're calling things for what it is when there are things that have not been fair with regards to the treatment at Ayers or by the district employees since before the school opened. But I just really wanted to address that. The animosity that I've felt since coming to this area is rather shocking, coming from the Bay Area in 2017. And unfortunate, because we're all here to educate students, whether we are in a union or not, whether we're in a district school or in a charter school. It isn't about politics. It isn't about name calling or funding sources. It is literally the money of the students goes to educating the students, and whoever's doing the educating of the students should be cooperated with.
Thank you, Morgan. Appreciate it. Okay, Jason?
Good evening. My name is Jason Colon. I'm currently the founding principal of Rocketship Futuro Academy. I wanted to just address two issues. One is the suggestion that was proposed recently 2 weeks ago for a split campus, and the other is whether we are receiving some type of racism or inequality towards us. Why do we deserve our own campus? Why should we be placed in one location only? And why should we have equal access to the same accommodation? I see it as a simple answer. It's because our children deserve it. We are serving over 140 families. We are here to stay. We're not going anywhere. So we're simply asking for the parents that chose to be part of our community, to be part of our team, to have the same opportunity and the same access that other members of other schools within this district receive. I recently went to a meeting with the lawyers of the district and some representatives of the district, and they proposed, well, why do you guys want hot food? Can you just serve your children cold food? And I looked at the guy and I said, and Nelly was sitting at that meeting, and I said, really? You're suggesting that we serve them cold food? Is this for real? Will you go to all the schools in the district and suggest that same thing? And if you really want to do that, go to our over 140 parents and suggest that. Because this is absurd. Like, why should we serve them cold food? Why should we do that? And the second thing that is being addressed is, are we the victims of racism? And it's very simple. All you need to look up is Facebook or Claycourt, and you will hear quotes like, they shouldn't be wasting any money on building schools for children of illegal immigrants. Why don't you just place them in an abandoned area where no one cares? Send them to a community that would be more accepting of those type of people. Now that they're in the Ayers community, I'm afraid that we're going to get a lot of vandalism.
Jason, thank you for your comments. And
I'm sorry?
we cannot control what people put on social media.
That's correct.
Just want you to know that.
That's correct. Just sharing what is being said.
Thank you.
Yes.
Andrea? Followed by Kiana. Keena, I'm sorry.
Hello, everyone. Buenas noches a todos los padres que están aquí también presentes. My name is Andrea LeBron, and I'm one of them, Rocketeers. My day that I was here is because I was here last time, and the same thing all over again. We're speaking about the same thing. But today I decided to come and speak to everybody is because we need a space. It's been raining. My car broke down, so we've been like walking with my daughter and everything to get to their school, And that's what I do because I want the better education for her. But recently she's been getting sick because the raining and like it's super cold and everything. And all the teachers at Rocket Ship, it's been helping everybody to not get wet and everything. But it's like, seriously, guys, I don't think no one wants your children to go to portable grades to go to get class and everything under the water, Our next school, they have ceiling and everything, and they're fine, pretty much. My daughter tells me, like, Mom, why I cannot go to a normal school, I love this school, but I would love to go to the normal school. And I say, you know what? We're going to have it soon. Because we believe that they're going to hear us, tonight. And that's why we are here. And I know every single parent that outside, they want to speak and they want to be here. And right now in this country, I think they're looking at us like differently, but no. We're an immigrant, and this country is an immigrant, like since day one. We're diversity, pretty much. And we want something better for our kids. And I know they're going to say, like, well, why you don't go to another school? No, we want better education. Trust me, they're doing so much. My daughter couldn't speak at all last year, and this year she's doing much better. Like, if you guys want to go see and check it out, like how the level of the kids, you guys are going to get surprised. Like, even our parents were learning with them. Even myself, I'm learning with them, like next to them, like how to pronounce the words and everything. So that's why we're here, and we want you guys to hear us that we need a space for our children.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Next will be Olivia Garcia.
Say Kina next, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I was just letting you up there.
Fine. Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Kina Hodge. I'm currently the Business Operations Manager for Rocket Ship Futuro Academy. This is the second time I've addressed the board in regards to our concerns around discrimination and safety for our students. Our parents and our families and our staff are here tonight because this is really about discrimination. It's about the safety of our children. This is about the lack of dignity and respect our students and staff have received since we've been on the campus of Ayers Elementary. We've seen numerous instances where safety has come into play for our students. Just last week, our students were forced to evacuate because of a fire drill. We thought the fire alarm had gone off for a real reason, but apparently the drill that was supposed to happen was rescheduled and we weren't notified. So our students had to quickly evacuate the campus with no jackets, no preparation. We know what to do for fire drill, but in that instance, we didn't know that there was a fire drill that was rescheduled. At no point did the other school notify us. We obviously have to do our drill schedule at the same time, and it's not fair to us. Little instances like that have caused a lot of issues for our students. Additionally, another parent spoke about the dogs that have been on campus. There have been numerous occasions where our after-school program and even our PE class has seen several residents from the community come on campus after Ayers is closed, but while we're still open with several dogs, pit bulls, all types of aggressive types of dogs, and we have to quickly shuffle our students. I've asked numerous people to please wait until after our school has closed to bring back their dogs. Some people listen, some people don't. Again, this is about the safety of our students. Also, we currently have a security guard that watches our campus in the evening because of our concerns about the safety of our campus, about people breaking in, about people coming. We've had a flag stolen, some of our college flags stolen off of our campus. And this is not the place that we want our students to be at. We want our students to feel like they're safe. We don't want them to be discriminated against. We want them to feel like they are equally a part of this community because they are. These students would otherwise have been in a district school, but there was rocket ship. And again, that was the parents' option to choose to be with us. And that doesn't mean that they need to be discriminated against. It doesn't mean that they need to feel any less loved by their community. I implore you guys to really consider keeping us, first of all, on one campus, whether that's at Ayers or whether that's at another location, but also for you all to really reconsider the civil rights complaints that we put in, because they are valid. And you can certainly come to our campus and take a look. We've not seen anyone come to our campus yet, and I'm asking everyone from the board to actually come and visit our campus. Come see our classrooms, come see our space, and see exactly what we're talking about, because it's really hard for you to make a decision based off of hearsay. Thank you.
Good evening, dear members of the board. Here we do not have a kitchen to prepare for children, and we do not have hot food. Children eat in their classroom because we don't have a place to eat. We have asked for a space to eat, which we need to have for our children. Having a space for children to eat is not so much to ask for. It is a right to serve food. In this season, the children need to have food and not having the prepared space. It's very worrying that my daughter is not feeding. Absolutely. The food helps them develop better. As a mother, I ask them to give them their space for their own cafeteria, the space to have physical education and their rest. Unfortunately, on rainy days it's very difficult for our children because they don't have much space and they go out to the grass outside and there is a lot of water and the children agree with their shoes wet and they get sick frequently. This affects their health and is consequence of the situation of not having that they have promised. The school district is not respecting the promised space that we agree is not fair for the kids.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you so much.
And then the last speaker will be, I'm not really sure, Ruben Quintero, or?
Good evening to everyone. I am Clara and I am one of the parents of a second grader. I've seen the change in my child since he started being part of Rocket Ship. And I heard that you guys are thinking of moving or considering taking Rocket Ship apart, like having Rocket Ship kinders first and second in one location and pre-K and other grades in another location for this upcoming year. To me, I will be a parent of a kindergartner, so it would be nonsense driving to one place and to another place. I am a full student myself, so it takes me like an hour and a half right now taking them from one school, from preschool to second grade and then from there to college. So it's just really taking consideration that like we really need a space. Another thing is I am very grateful for the teachers, for the staff, for everyone in the community that they've taught me a lot. Like they've taught me what teamwork really is. In the previous schools, you know, I would not pay attention because I wouldn't feel that welcoming. But now it's very different. And I just want you guys to take in consideration every word that we say. We're here. Yeah, the Future Kinder. I'm sorry. They're supposed to be in bed by now, but I'm making a sacrifice because it's for their future. Thank you very much and have a very good evening.
Oh, is that your child?
He wants to say a little.
I'm Ruben and I'm representing Rocket Ship Futuro Academy. And when I went to Rocket Ship, in my heart I felt happy. And I thought to myself, wow, Rocket Ship has good education and that these kids are going to get so smart. And when I went to Rocket Ship Futuro Academy, it reminded me of something, and it reminded me about another rocket ship. And I said that I wish there was 3rd grade and 4th grade, and that when I see staff working, I see that they're working so hard and that I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
To clarify, Ruben went to Rocket Ship School in San Jose, but we don't have 3rd grade, so that's what he's referring to.
Thank you. All righty. Now we're going on to our recognitions and resolutions. And I believe Dr. Meyer is going to do 9.1.
Yes, thank you. The National Council for the Teachers of English is a long-recognized organization that has extremely high standards and publishes annual information and holds conferences that really elevate the subject of English for our English teachers. There are few times that I've ever seen a national award that has been given from this organization. The National Council for the Teachers of English has a particular award that honors individuals, groups, or institutions that merit recognition for advancing the cause of intellectual freedom. And it is something that teachers and educators hold very dearly, the idea that they have the right to educational freedom, that when they teach, that they are not stopped from teaching certain things, and that they have the ability to express their opinions both inside the classroom in a balanced way as well as outside of the classroom. Our district had the good fortune of having one of these national honorees, and I think the only national honoree, in the form of Dan Reynolds. And I'd ask if Dan would stand. 3.5 years ago, one of the first people I met when I came to Mount Diablo was Dan Reynolds. Our general counsel said you were one of the first people he met as well, because Dan truly believes in intellectual freedom, and we know that. And he was recognized representing Mount Diablo Unified in Atlanta, Georgia, and gave a wonderful speech about how he felt that his role as an educator, as an English teacher, was a job that impacted multiple generations and had a long rippling effect. So without any hesitation, I would like to honor Dan Reynolds for this award and present to the board this recognition tonight. I'm sure you have something to say right now.
There's always something to say. The question is whether you want the full 7-minute speech or the cut down version of it. I'm thankful to the California Association for the Teachers of English and Liz McInich for putting me forward for the award, and for the district for their continual support in my efforts, as well as the efforts of all of our teachers to provide the best education that we can for our students. Over my years as a teacher in the district, I was able to exercise that intellectual freedom in ways to help advocate for our students, to stand up, to speak out for them, to refuse to accept censorship, ignorance, inadequate access, inequitable education, or oppression. Our work is to implement, practice, and defend intellectual freedom at all levels. And to address attacks on free expression every day, we should ask, agitate, and act. As a first-year teacher, I wanted to know if there were ways that we could have more texts to teach the students in our district. I asked, I agitated a little bit with the other teachers in my department at my school, and we acted and put together a committee that eventually got the Novel Fight Club approved by the board to teach to the high school students in our district. Over the course of my career, I have been a part of other text adoption committees that include teaching Mouse, the first graphic novel ever to receive the Pulitzer Prize, as well as the books First They Killed My Father and Always Running. Similarly, I wanted to know if there were ways that the state could provide funding for smaller class sizes to provide a more equitable education to our students and their needs. We agitated, myself, Union President Guy Moore, Dr. Meyer, we agitated with the state legislature, and after months of meetings, we convinced the governor's budget office that there should be $4 million in the state budget to help in our QEIA drawdown that helped our schools here, as well as a total of 21 schools across the state to receive those $4 million. Those actions remind me that we can have an impact here in our own classrooms and district, as well as across the entire state. I always talk to my students about it's important not to be a bystander, but to be an upstander. And intellectual freedom encourages all of us to be an upstander for what we know is right and to speak out, to listen to what is going on in the world around us, and to do what we can to make small differences. And I would like to encourage everyone to consider that now, in 2017, with the federal administration that we have, every day should be a renewed effort for intellectual freedom, for the freedom of all people, to stand, to find a life for themselves, to be free, to not be discriminated against because of their country of origin, that we should not be banning people from setting foot on the shores of our country, that we should not be rounding them up wholesale and looking to deport them, that we should not be building walls, but building bridges. Thank you.
All righty. So now we are on 9.2 resolution for safe, welcoming, and inclusive schools. We have like 20 speaker cards, so 21 to be exact. If you can keep your comments brief, or if you hear what you want to say already expressed, but we're going to go for it and see what happens. So we'll go with Olivia a minute, I guess. Back to Eleanor East.
Hello, my name is Laura Easton from Northgate High School, and I'm here to encourage you to pass a safe haven resolution with clear language that specifically protects all students from immigration law enforcement activities on or around district property. As a student of Northgate, I feel that it is of utmost importance to feel safe and accepted, both at school and at homes, and a school is a place meant for learning and growing. However, I have seen hateful comments scrawled on bathroom stalls, heard jokes about Muslims and Mexicans between kids hanging around my own little brother, and read countless more stories of the bullying on these issues throughout the country. Now, my family and I are not being directly affected by these new immigration policies. It is easy for someone who feels no personal threats to feel that this is simply not an issue, that it will work out on its own. But you cannot just turn a blind eye to something this detrimental that is hurting children's education, their confidence in themselves, and their identity, especially when we can do something to help. I've been working with a group of girls after school with Ava Fahadi and Ashley Zhu, a program called Goals, and we do confidence building activities as well as group conversations on their thoughts, including their feelings on these new immigration policies in place. One of the girls expressed how she was afraid that her sister would be stolen from her, something that no 7th grader should have to fear. Another time we were doing an activity where we mark the countries that where our family is from on a map and share something about the country, your culture, your religion, or simply a family custom. One of the girls who was Muslim refused to mark the map or share any information about her religion or culture due to the hate that she was receiving from her peers at school. Now, this was very out of character for her, as she's usually very outspoken and outgoing. With words of support, she was eventually able to do it. But without her support, she didn't express any pride about her or her family because she was afraid of the reaction and the hate she would receive from her peers. School is supposed to be a place for learning and socializing, not for being targeted for your race or religion. And I really hope that this safe haven resolution is passed to help ensure the safety and well-being of these kids. Thank you.
Try to keep your eye on that little red light there. Monica.
Good evening, members of the board, President Mason, and Superintendent Meyer. My name is Monica Navarro, and I'm a kindergarten bilingual teacher at Bel Air Elementary. And I want to thank you for proposing a resolution for a safe, inclusive, welcoming learning environment. And I also feel that there are a few key points from this resolution that need to be included in order for all students, families, and community members to feel safe. First, I feel that we need a resolution that includes the fact that immigration officials should obtain prior written permission from the superintendent in order to enter school grounds. I also feel that the resolution should include a written plan for students who may be left without the care of their parents due to their parents being taken by immigration officials. That we have a rapid response team that can respond to emergency situations to support students who may find themselves without care. And finally, that the district organize informational meetings and events in order for parents to receive access to information on their legal rights and receive legal counsel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anita? And after Anita will be Veronica and
Good evening. I'm Anita Johnson, Vice President of the Diablo Education Association, and I think it might be helpful if you could clarify for the audience. There were two resolutions in the back that you're considering. One of them was posted with the agenda, one was not. I really like the revised one. I think that it is exactly what our district needs, and I would encourage you to adopt the revised resolution. Thank you.
And you're correct, Anita, that there was a second one proposed, and I asked that some copies be put out tonight so everybody could see them, and we're gonna talk about the difference between them. If it looks like we're getting to a point where we want a whole different resolution, then we'll table it until our next meeting. So that's, but we wanted to get the public input so we can have that to inform our discussion makers. Okay, Veronica. Followed by Blanca.
Good evening. Good evening, board and audience. My name is Veronica Elena Garcia. I am a kindergarten bilingual teacher at Cambridge Elementary. I have taught there for 3 years, and ever since I started till now, every morning I wake up looking forward to a new day with my students, seeing them happy, ready to learn. And last month, 2 students came to me expressing their fears that they might be separated from the parents. So that actually really broke my heart, and I told my students it's gonna be okay. So again, in agreement with my colleagues, that I would like a resolution where students will feel safe at school, and they're happy to continue to come to school and learn.
Thank you. After Blanca will be Kathleen Gomes.
Good evening, Dr. Meyer, members of the board, parents, colleagues, and community of Mount Diablo Unified School District. I have been a teacher now for 20 years, 12 years from Mount Diablo. I was born and raised in Mexico. I'm currently teaching second grade bilingual at Shore Acres Elementary. I am here as a teacher, as a mother. My son has been and is currently a senior, ready to exit the Mount Diablo School. I am also a paisana. That's how my heart is in this community. Born and raised there, a friend and an advocate for my students and their families. Where I am from Mexico, there is a sanctuary. It's in Angapeo, Michoacan. It's for the monarch butterflies, for these beautiful insects. How much more can we do for human migrants? On the cover of the NIA magazine, you can find one picture, and it talks about trauma and the effect on children and learning. We are already facing many challenges as teachers, and our students and family don't feel safe. And now with the new head in the country, they're feeling aggression and they're feeling bullying, even more so. And the picture that I want to show you besides this magazine is a picture of my students coming in tears after the elections results. And their parents and their vocabulary they're using at homes, they need help, they need support, they need to have a climate advocate at each school where they know, oh, you know, I can go to so-and-so at this school and we can talk about it because we can't go on and teach and do everything like we do and just forget about these facts that are happening and pretend that they're not. So I really want a strong resolution, and I if there's anything that I can do more, I will be happy to. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Stephanie Gomes. I'm a fourth year bilingual kindergarten teacher. I taught 2 years at Ignacio Valley Elementary, and this is my second year at Bancroft. I would like to speak in support of a strong safe haven resolution. I love working in a bilingual class and seeing students learning not only language and academic content, but sharing cultures and multiple ways to interact with the world. And I think that is such an important thing to share and learn from students. I'm thinking about the PD that I went to today, where we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and after the physiological needs are met, the two most basic needs are safety and belonging. And I feel that a safe haven resolution would show a strong support for students who might be feeling especially vulnerable, that they should demonstrate support for their safety and belonging in this community. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Asiano, and I'm a teacher at Meadow Mountains Elementary at teacher 8th grade. This is my first year in this district, and this season has definitely brought about a lot of worries and emotions. Every single one of my students has shared with me and shared with our entire class that either them personally or a close family member is affected by some of these actions, and at the time proposed actions towards immigrants and immigrant families. Many have shed tears, and of course, as a teacher, I'm like, it's all gonna be okay, you're in a safe place. But then I go home and I actually am doubting myself and feel kind of bad that I may have just lied to my students that I love so dearly. So I really would like to thank you for being open to this and already drafting this, but I would really like to stress the importance of helping us as teachers and a school community be prepared in events of unwelcome confrontation or other worried, stressful situations. So that support would be really appreciated. And real quick, shout out to the high school students. I am so in admiration and proud for their work and articulation. Beautiful.
Okay. Good evening, President Mason, members of the board, supervisor, audience. My name is Cherise Count. I'm a parent of students at Walnut Acres and Footville. I'm PFC president at Walnut Acres. I'm on the Parent Advisory Council and I'm an active volunteer throughout the district, as you know. I want to thank you for bringing forward the new draft in response to questions that I and others here tonight brought forward with the prior draft. We really encourage you to to vote on the more specific draft that includes all of the details about what happens when an immigration official wants to enter a school site or asks for student records, or what happens to a minor child when they're in school and their parent or guardian is deported or detained. So I really encourage you to vote on that more detailed draft. Regardless of one's political views on immigration, schools should be safe places that no one should fear will be disrupted by the presence of immigration officials. I've heard from students and families who are afraid and confused, and the home raids are happening now. That started happening last week, and we're hearing about more every day. As a citizen of this country and as a parent, I do not want my children's education to be disrupted by immigration officials entering their school grounds. And that right to feel safe on campus should be afforded to every child in our district. I encourage you to vote tonight on that new draft of the Safe Haven Resolution, because you as board members have the power to reassure right now all parents and students that they are safe on our campus. It's that easy. Approve the detailed resolution tonight, and we will all sleep better tonight. Thank you.
Guy, followed by Dahlia, and that's it.
Good evening, President Mason, board members, Superintendent Nellie Meyer. We witnessed over the weekend that there were some rather significant immigration raids in 7 states, 7 cities in the United States, and some were close in Southern California. We have teachers here tonight from the following schools who are concerned for their students: Bel Air, Cambridge, Shore Acres, Bancroft, Meadow Homes, El Monte, and Ignacio Valley Elementary. This fear and concern for our students is real, as you all know, and there's an outpouring of people who are here to speak, and we were really here to encourage you to enlarge the resolution to make it more comprehensive, and we were thrilled when we arrived to see that there is another resolution that looks like it meets our needs. And so I too would urge you to strongly consider passing that resolution. I just want to share with you an article that I read today, and it's a little excerpt from the article from CNN, and it's about the immigration raids. And specifically, it was about a number of different people. There was a woman from Arizona who has been here 21 years. She came to our country when she was 14 years of age, and her crime was working with a fake Social Security number so she could care for her family. She has 2 children, and her 14-year-old daughter spoke very eloquently in support of her mom, who was deported from Mexico. Anyway, in this article it says, across the United States, some unauthorized immigrants are keeping their children home from school. Others have suspended after-school visits to the public library. Some don't answer knocks on their doors. They're taping bed sheets over windows and staying off social media. Nervous parents and their children constantly exchange text messages and phone calls. Their fear is heightened after raids took place in 7 states throughout the United States. This fear is real. It's not imagined. Thank you.
Dahlia, followed by Olivia.
Yeah, okay.
My name is Gabby. I'll be interpreting for
Good evening, señora Presidenta y Mesa Directiva de Educación. Mi nombre es Dalila Quirarte, madre de 3 niños y miembro del Grupo Regional del Centro del Condado, patrocinado por los primeros 5 de Contracosta.
Good evening, Superintendent and board members. My name is Dalila Quirarte, mother of 3 children and a member of the Central County Regional Group, sponsored by First Life Contra Costa.
Hoy estoy aquí para darles las gracias por la creación de la resolución 2016/17-31, en la cual se habla de lugares de aprendizaje seguros, acogedores e inclusivos.
Today I'm here before you to thank you for creating Resolution 2016-17-31, which speaks of safe, welcoming, and inclusive learning spaces.
Nuestro grupo viene en representación de muchas familias con niños pequeños que lamentablemente no pueden estar aquí hoy. Como muchas madres, a mí me gustaría que este distrito escolar aprobara esta resolución, que es un muy buen primer paso.
Our group comes on behalf of many families with young children who unfortunately cannot be here tonight. Like many mothers, I would like the Mount Diablo School District to approve the new resolution as it is a good first step.
Quiero resaltar la importancia de que nuestros niños se sientan seguros en cualquier lugar donde ellos habiten, y las escuelas son uno de los lugares donde los niños pasan casi la mitad del día.
I want to emphasize the importance of our children feeling safe wherever they are, and schools are one of the places where children spend almost half of their day.
En estos momentos de amenazas en contra de las familias inmigrantes, les pedimos al distrito escolar que proteja a nuestros niños, no importando su estatus migratorio. Me gustaría que en esta resolución se incluyera cómo el distrito protegerá a nuestros niños de la discriminación, no importando su raza, su género, su orientación sexual, su etnicidad o su religión.
At these times of threat against immigrant families, we ask the school district to protect all of our children regardless of immigration status. I would like for this resolution to include language on how the district will protect our children from discrimination regardless of their race, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, or religion.
La paz y la salud mental de nuestros niños es importante para su desarrollo y futuros logros en la vida.
The peace and mental health of our children is important for the development and future achievements in life.
Las escuelas deben representar un lugar seguro y agradable para nuestros niños y un lugar donde posiblemente, para nuestros hijos, y no un lugar donde posiblemente se destruya la vida de un niño por causas muy ajenas a él.
Schools should represent a safe and enjoyable place for our children and not a place where a child's life is likely to be destroyed by causes very alien to him.
Por favor, aprueben esta resolución, agregando la modificación de cómo el distrito y su personal proveerá una respuesta rápida en contra de la discriminación y siempre con equidad. Así, de esa manera, nuestros niños estarán seguros, que es la meta de todos.
Please approve this resolution with the addition of adding, modifying, and including language around how the district and its staff will provide a rapid response against discrimination and always with an eye towards equity. That way our children will be protected, which is everyone's goal.
Muchas gracias.
Buenas tardes, superintendente y mesa directiva de educación. Mi nombre es Olivia Rivera, madre de 2 niños y miembro del grupo regional del centro del condado, patrocinado por los primeros 5 de Contra Costa.
Good evening, Superintendent and Board of Education. My name is Olivia Rivera, mother of 2 children and a member of the Central County Regional Group sponsored by First 5 Contra Costa.
Hoy vengo ante ustedes para pedirles que voten a favor de la resolución para crear espacios de aprendizaje inclusivos, acogedores y, lo más importante, seguros para nuestros hijos.
Today I come before you to ask you to vote in favor of the new resolution to create learning spaces that are inclusive, welcoming, and most importantly, safe for our children.
Le quiero dar las gracias a todos ustedes por pensar en nuestros hijos y empezar a dialogar con todos nosotros alrededor de la seguridad y inclusividad de nuestros hijos. Para mí, como madre, no hay nada más importante que la seguridad de mis hijos. Y me alegra el saber que el distrito escolar se preocupa y está pensando en maneras de ayudar.
I want to thank you all for thinking about our children and for starting a dialogue with all of us around the safety and inclusiveness of our children. For me as a mother, there is nothing more important than the safety of my children, and I'm glad to know that the school district cares and is thinking of ways to help.
Creo que este es un buen paso, pero a mí me gustaría que también en esta resolución se hablara de nuestros miedos de ICE en las escuelas y en el distrito. ¿Está listo para proteger a nuestros niños en esos casos?
I think this is a good step forward, but I would like this resolution to also include language about our fears with ICE in schools and how the district is ready to protect our children in those cases.
Necesitamos que nuestras escuelas sean espacios en los cuales nuestros niños y padres no tengan temor o preocupación ninguna. Yo sé que muchos padres tienen mucho temor por todo el clima antiinmigrante y eso les da pánico y le lleva a algunos a prohibir que sus hijos vengan a las escuelas.
We need our schools to be safe in which our children and parents have no fear or worry at all. I know that many parents have a lot of fear due to the anti-immigrant climate, and that panic leads to some to forbid their children from coming to school.
Por favor, ayúdennos y voten a aprobar esta resolución y por favor agreguen como el distrito protegerá a nuestros niños de ICE. Conviertan los espacios escolares en espacios en los cuales nuestros niños puedan aprender sin miedos ni prejuicios.
Please help us by voting to approve this resolution, and please add the language into the resolution on how the district will protect our children from ICE. Make the school spaces into spaces in which our children can learn without fear or prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, just a point of order, I just, so we have 1 minute per speaker, and for our bilingual speakers, we have 2 minutes, is that correct?
Yep. So Rhea, followed by Jessica.
Good evening, Board President Mason, Superintendent, and Board members. My name is Rhea. I'm with First Five Contra Costa, and we are the proud sponsors of the Central County Regional Group, representing hundreds of children across your district. I'd like to thank you for this revised resolution and echo the other comments tonight. In this current socio-political climate, it's critical that all children's advocates declare our unwavering commitment to protect children and to provide environments that foster their optimal potential. It's for this reason that I applaud the board for this revised version. It is an important step in addressing the omnipresent fears that are faced by children and families in this current moment. I'd also like to highlight certain sections and respectfully request or suggest that even more detailed language is included even in the revised version. One is specifically regarding protecting children from ICE raids. ICE's activities across the nation this past week make painfully clear that the current administration's promises to remove 11 million immigrants is not just propaganda or empty promises. Further, the Contra Costa Sheriff's actions to collaborate with ICE make this threat particularly concerning in our county. I suggest that this resolution state in even more detail what the district is prepared to do to protect students and families from trauma, family separation, and absenteeism. We request this resolution explicitly not allow ICE agents on the grounds unless they have a warrant, that they will not collaborate by sharing any student files that would specify their family's location or their immigration status. And we also request that you more explicitly address bullying and hate speech by modifying this resolution to foster inclusion of children regardless of their status as refugees, immigrants, Muslims, LGBT, or students of color. And lastly, I just want to say we do applaud the board for initiating this conversation, and please know that First Five Contra Costa is here to work with you in collaboration as we navigate these times for the protection and success of all our children. Thank you.
I'm gonna start getting mean now.
Okay, I'll be Good evening, President Mason, members of the board, Superintendent Meyer, and audience. My name is Jessica Clark, and I am a Walnut Creek resident, newly registered kindergarten parent at Pleasant Hill Elementary, and a California credentialed teacher and educator. I'm here to encourage you to pass a safe haven resolution with clear language that specifically protects all students from immigration law enforcement activities on or around district property, like some of the language in the more recent draft we see tonight. Thank you for that. As a teacher and parent, I know the most important factor in providing all our students with a quality education, as is their legal right, is a feeling of safety and security at school. This is not a political or partisan issue. Allowing immigration officials to conduct business on or through school campuses
While all our children are away from their parents or caregivers and entrusted in the district's care, would violate that sense of safety and security not only for the most vulnerable students who are innocent children, but also for all the students in that educational environment regardless of immigration status. I urge you to adopt the common sense and specific safe haven resolutions recommended by the CTA, like those again included in the most updated draft, for the Mount Diablo School District tonight. We need to ensure we are doing everything in our power on our school properties to protect that vital sense of safety and security for all our students as they pursue their legal right to a public education. Thanks.
Going once, going twice, Laura.
We're having a public hearing.
Okay, after Laura would be Linda.
Sorry about that. No problem. Good evening, Dr. Meyer, President Mason, and all the members of the board. I'm also short, sorry about that. So I just wanted to, so my name is Laura Leslie Wagner. I'm a parent in the district. I'm also a professor of history at San Francisco State University. I wanted to applaud you for the more detailed language of the provision tonight. I just wanted to say that I think that it's the details of the resolution that are going to give people peace of mind rather than the general claims of the earlier version. No child should be afraid to come to school. No parent should be afraid to send their child to school. And so I urge you to adopt the resolution. Thanks.
Thank you. Mary Rick.
Good evening, President Mason, and board members, and members of the community. My name is Linda Ortega. I'm a second grade teacher at Almonte Elementary School. A proud second grade teacher. I have lovely students from all over the world. I teach students from Iraq, Afghanistan, from South America, different places. But I'm here to explain and share a story with you from a different perspective. We all heard the eloquent stories from the members of the community. But I also want to share with you what happens to the students who've come to love their friends from these countries. Right after the election, I had a student come up to me, an African American student, and Mrs. Ortega, I'm going to have to leave. I said, what do you mean you have to leave? I have to leave now. I said, I have to go back. I go, well, where do you have to go back to? I have to go back to Wisconsin. And I said, no, honey, you can stay. That's not what happened. Another student I noticed who was from Chinese family and American Chinese, and I said, what's the matter, sweetie? And she said, I'm so sad. I said, why are you sad? Because all my friends from Mexico now have to leave. I've made friends with them. So, yes, we know ICE is out there. We know families are scared. Many of my students are very scared. But they also have friends. And those are the ones that I'm speaking in regards to as well. They are going to lose the friendships that we've developed. So I just wanted to also mention one thing, we're not just educators, I've become a social worker. I help not only feed their minds, but I feel like at our school we feed their souls, we feed their bodies. We have this wonderful, and you will hear, community, a garden. Our students learn about our chickens that are in our coops. They learn everything about how to feed themselves. So, and CTA has drafted a resolution, which I understand you took some information from, but this is one item that stuck out to me. And whereas educational personnel are often the primary sources of support, resources, and information to assist and support students and student learning, which includes their emotional health. That's what I'm here for, to express to you the full emotional health of all our students. Thank you.
I know Muriel's sticking me to
As fast as I can. Good evening, members of the board. President Mason, I guess we've got a new seating arrangement here. This is
I did.
very
I like to
accommodating.
shake things up.
Thank you. And of course, Molly Meyer.
I'm standing here, first of all, I would be speaking for my daughter, a Sequoia Middle School student, as well as my son at College Park High School, but like most students, they wait till the very last minute to start their homework, and they better be doing it now, because that's why they're not here. Okay, I am standing here with many others who want to pass this resolution, the revised resolution regarding safe haven. In 1982, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that all children are entitled to public education regardless of citizenship or immigration status. We are simply asking that the MVUSD take a stand like many other school districts in our state that have passed such resolutions, including the UC system. So we're a little behind the times here. It is the right thing to do. We need to stand up and be counted as humanitarians who care for the safety and well-being of our students and communities. The California Values Act, which is Senate Bill 54, is currently making its way through the state Senate. This bill came out of the California legislature this week and would protect immigrants in vulnerable communities from the attacks that are feeling by the current federal administration. I'm hoping this bill will be passed because it reflects what we should be doing here at the Mount Dale School District, protecting our most valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. Ezra. Rosa. Rosa Lopez.
Buenas noches, Consejo Directivo, yo soy Rosa López, vengo de la Escuela Belea, tengo un hijo también en la Riverview y yo quiero tocar un punto para nosotros es muy importante por mis hijos. Queremos que la... Oh.
Good evening, members of the board. This parent here tonight is from Bel Air Elementary, and she has a daughter at Bel Air and a son at Riverview, and she would like to touch on a few points.
El punto que quiero tocar es de que quisiéramos tener una resolución para que inmigración no pueda entrar a las escuelas, como dijeron las demás personas.
She is asking for a resolution that immigration officials cannot enter the schools, as so many other people have already asked.
Y que el distrito no les dé permiso por escrito antemano al superintendente para que no puedan o que nos avisen a los papás, qué sé yo, cuando migración vaya ahí, porque hay mucho niño hispano ilegal en las escuelas Riverview y en Bel Air.
So she's asking for schools to not allow immigration officials to enter school without written permission, and to notify parents that may be affected, as so many undocumented parents of students at Bel Air and Riverview.
Me gustaría que pasáramos esta resolución.
And she's requesting that the board pass this resolution.
Gracias.
Thank you. It's Ochoa Gallegos. Is the middle of Erica or Ezra? Okay.
I'll go on her plate.
No, we can't do that, but we can take the next person, which is Elia Ortiz, as Eslela. Ortiz. Okay. Melissa Farrar.
Good evening. So I had a whole speech about horrific things and fears that all my students are having. I am a ESL teacher at Loma Vista Adult Center. But since everyone has been talking and you guys are all extremely educated people, I don't want to waste your time and tell you how very real these fears are for the students and for my adult students, that they don't want to bring their children. Their children have come to me crying that they don't want their parents to come to school. It's horrific. So being an ESL teacher, it's very difficult to get people from about 20 different countries all on the same page and thinking the same thing at the same time. But shockingly and very scary thing is that they have all been able to feel the same thing and think the same thing of this fear that they don't know what to do. It's been pretty much debilitating. So I'm here obviously to speak on behalf of them, but also on the fact of the staff. After the elections, all this has affected our attendance, this has affected the students. But when I went to go ask, what do we say? What do I tell my students when they come to me crying? I was directed to tell them to just have to look at the United States Immigration Services website and to figure it out. So I know administration and many policymakers such as yourselves and many other administrations in other schools may be cautious or concerned about, almost fearful about taking a political stance in school, but I would not be doing my job as an ESL teacher when I teach into a department of only immigrants to not include the policies that affect immigrants within the classrooms. So essentially, I very clearly urge you to please pass this resolution tonight. I know things can obviously get better. We would want it extremely detailed, but I need my students to be safe tonight, tomorrow, so that they can come to school immediately without fear and practice their educational rights of just learning in the classroom and not having to worry about fear and immigration rates when they already are affected by that in every other aspect of their life. So, thank you.
And followed by the last speaker, Dan Reynolds.
Good evening. My name is Melba Igesabas. I am an ESL Senior Instructional Assistant at Loma Vista Adult Center and at Meadow Homes. I am going to share a story because everybody has covered what I wanted to say. I guess the last people get, we're at the bottom of the barrel. But anyway, after the election, the day right after the election, I went to my child care attendants who are here, and I asked them to make me signs because I was going to protest. So they went ahead and they made signs in English and in Spanish, no somos criminals, no somos rapists, somos hardworking Latinos. And then I asked my class at Meadow Homes if they wanted to, my students at Meadow Homes, if they wanted to join me and protest with me, that I was going to protest in front of Costco because Costco gets a lot of traffic. Truck drivers, you get everybody, people from San Ramon, from Danville. I wanted to get the most amount of people to see my signs. Well, I have been the only one carrying that big sign. And my girlfriend, who's also middle-aged like myself. And we've been out there protesting. And I went back to my students the following week and I asked them, what happened? Why haven't you guys joined me? I'm doing this because we have to show them that we are not afraid, that we will take this to the end. And they told me they are petrified. They are horrified by what this man is going to do. And they don't need to be well educated to understand that what he said during his campaign was going to be true. And I can't believe that at Loma Vista, because I also teach there, I have to step on eggshells and not talk about what's going on. And these students from Meadow Homes understood what this man stands for. So I'm asking you, please pass the Safe Haven resolution tonight. Because we need our students back in the classroom. Not only children, but our adults coming to our adult school at Loma Vista. Thank you.
60 seconds begins now. Dan Reynolds, parent of 2 children who attend our district schools, also credentialed English, history, and art teacher. And I'm speaking to advocate for the longer revised version that has stronger rationale and broader reaching, stronger resolved statements. I'm enough of an English teacher to understand the concept of hyperbole and how we shouldn't over-exaggerate. But I'm also enough of a history teacher to know what history has taught us. The president is a racist. The attorney general is a racist. They want to build walls and discriminate against people due to their religion and their country of origin. They want to rip healthcare away from millions of people. They want to starve our children, and they want to rip families apart. Please do not stand by. Stand up. We must stand up. We must resist racism, xenophobia, hate, and violent nationalism. This resolution, in all of its detail, is one step. Please take that step and pass this resolution. Thank you.
Well, first I want to thank you all for coming out and speaking tonight. And it's really interesting perspective being everything. And Dan set me up very well talking about history. And I was one of the people that, as we wrote this, wanted to make sure it was really inclusive. And my history is I'm Sicilian. And when I went to school in the 1960s, I was called a Dago and a Wop. And my father had friends. Not funny. My father had friends that had been put in internment camps during World War II. Italians and Germans and the Japanese were put in internment camps. So while I don't disagree with the thing that was said here tonight, it's more than about ICE, and it's more than about immigrants. That's who we're targeting today. I don't know who will be targeted tomorrow. I don't know what group will be going after tomorrow. So I wanted to make it very inclusive. So next month we're not here doing a resolution about Muslims, and next month we're not here doing a resolution about pretty much everybody that isn't blonde hair and blue eye. So
How about no hair?
But that's just where I was trying to be more inclusive, not wanting to say that we're not going to do everything we can do to make our families safe, but you also have to know that we do have policies in place about protecting the kids' privacy and what ICE needs to do before they come on the campuses and what our staffs. I think we are training all the time on how we handle these things. So that was where the thinking was coming from, and now I'll open it to discussion from the rest of the board.
So we can just discuss, we don't need a motion or anything else.
Sure.
I want to thank everybody for all your comments. I really appreciate, I think, hearing, on the ground in the schools, what you're seeing, what you're hearing from students is critically important to bring this really to life. I think, as Deborah said, there was some work done. I did propose 3 weeks ago that we do this process. And it is, it can get very complex. And but I at this point, one of the things I will say is I wanted to make sure adult learners were included, given my background working with adult learners, all my family literacy centers on elementary campuses. Critically important that those students feel safe. They're there with their young children. But also at the main campus, the Loma Vista Adult Center. We've lived through this before. My 37 years, I saw this happen before, and exactly as she was explaining, it's a very terrifying experience. So I wanted to make sure we didn't. Most resolutions don't talk about adult learners. Even Torlaksen's resolution did not talk about adult learners. It's very disturbing to me. So I think Mount Diablo can be unique in that way, and make sure we talk about the adult learners that are part of our system in our district. I do think time is of the essence. I think we need to get something done. I agree. In an ideal world, we get it done tonight, because I think it's critically important that we're out there, that resolution out there. But also, as Deborah said, I have great faith in our superintendent. I know how she feels about these issues. I think what becomes even more important is the communication that goes out to all staff. Very, we're very detailed explanation. As Deborah said, many of these things are in place. As again, I've lived through them before, so we do know there are protocols that staff is supposed to follow when these situations come up. But it's critically important right now that make sure everyone knows that and knows the details of it. So I think all the ideas of, convenings and all that stuff. I know some of that's already in motion. So I could feel some comfort knowing that we have this wonderful superintendent who's going to make sure this is done right. So I'm happy to see the revised resolution as well. I guess what I don't want to see happen is we get hung up tonight on the wordsmithing and what's not included, what's included. I think it's critical that we get something done tonight.
Madam President, what was the process? So we have a publicly posted resolution, and then Mrs. Mayo was kind enough to share with me a revised. What was
How
just,
that happened?
yes, can you
Okay.
just share the process a little bit?
Drafted, I met with Dr. Meyer, we came up with one, we put it on there, that was so we could get it posted with the agenda. And then over the weekend, I received the other one from Ms. Mayo that she suggested, and because I believe in being open and we're gonna have a discussion anyway, I asked that it be posted, or at least copies be here for the public tonight, and that we would have this discussion tonight and decide which one we wanted to.
So, based on our protocols, there's the Brown Act. And when I contacted one board member, the board member indicated that they'd already had a discussion with the second board member. And because I know the two board members are working together as the chair and vice chair, I'm the odd man out. And my maiden name is Odd, so there's a lot of fun in this story. We do not have a process whereby if a board member, in particular in regards to resolutions, where a board member can request that something be noticed in advance of our meeting so that we can have an intelligent discussion on it. Because I could make a motion, according to Robert's rules, to substitute the item that I proposed for the one that's on the docket, and no one would be able to see it ahead of time. If we had the ability to post both items there, then folks could review them ahead of time. I want to applaud Mrs. Mason for providing the copies there, so at least some people have had the opportunity to review them, and it is what it is.
I would just like to say that I agree with the comments that Mrs. Durkee made and Mrs. Mason have made, and actually Mrs. Mayo at that point around the Brown Act, because when I got to the meeting, sitting at my desk here, my area, is a substitute resolution.
It's not substitute yet.
And it would, well, those are my words, and I'm entitled to them. By the way, I'm blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Stand up for that group. But I'm very comfortable with the resolution that's posted on the agenda. I agree with Mrs. Durkee that I think it is, the timing is important. I also agree with Mrs. Mason's commentary that you can get down to a place where it's so specific and you could be sitting here wordsmithing for the rest of our lives. I think one of the things I wanted to reinforce is I saw the resolution that's posted on the agenda, and I wrote down comments even because I had a feeling we'd be having discussion. But I saw it as straightforward, rational, and calm, and its assurance for our students and parents that our district continues to be a safe, welcoming, and inclusive learning environment. And I say continues because I understand the fear and anxiety, but the law is still in place that protects us in terms of education code. And education code and district policies continue to protect our students. I understand there's heightened concern right now, but I also feel there's time that we need to sort of put forward a resolution. We need to pass something that I think is a kind of a calm reassurance that the district cares about protecting our kids. We have never given up the privacy rights, and we won't give that up because it's law. We will continue to protect our students. I would be very comfortable moving on this resolution that's been posted on the agenda. I'm very uncomfortable in terms of public vetting. To look, I would need to look at another resolution, study the language, and post it for the public, because I think part of the fact is that folks here tonight being handed something have an opportunity to look at it. There's a whole bunch of people who may not. I think the resolution that we have posted on the agenda provides the kind of protection and reassurance, really it's more reassurance, that the district will continue to protect our kids and be very inclusive and sensitive to parents. So I would not, if we wanted to consider a second resolution that has not been posted or vetted, I would suggest we postpone it. I don't want to postpone it. I think what Mrs. Durkee said matters, and that is that I think it's important to take some action, make a statement tonight. It doesn't mean you're locked forever, but I would not be comfortable taking action on a resolution that has not been posted for the public.
So, is it a possibility that we, act on the one, because that's true, on the one that's been posted, and we put it back on the agenda for the revised one for 2 weeks, so there's some built-in protections right now, some public statement that's made right now, if there really is no way to legitimately consider the revision. I mean, the proposed revision. I'm assuming that's correct, I'm the newest one here, so I'm assuming that's correct.
May I interject?
Yes, you should.
The second one that's more lengthy has some very concerning language for me as the district general counsel. Also, in parts, it would violate board policy. So we're going to have to really look at the language of that second one that was proposed. Before it could be adopted, you would have to bring it probably along with an amendment to board policy. So, and I haven't had the opportunity, and I've just seen two sitting here while you were talking. The first resolution is, as Yancy pointed out, is I had no issues with that at all. But that doesn't mean you couldn't adopt another one, or we couldn't bring back certain policies that need to be.
So, one, I believe it's important that we take action tonight. Two, I significantly favor the revised resolution. I think it has, frankly, more teeth to it. As a political science major, I love the fact that it does reference Plyler versus Doe, which was a Supreme Court case that was decided in 1982, in which actually all 9 justices in varying degrees found that the state of Texas had gone too far, and that there was that unauthorized immigrant children are people in any ordinary sense of the term, and had protection from discrimination. So and by the way, it was the majority opinion was written by William Brennan, who I believe was the greatest Supreme Court justice of the 20th century. If we do take action on the first resolution, then I am hoping and would bring forward myself, if it is not brought forward by anyone else, a revised motion in 2 weeks to make sure that we do have more teeth and more substance to this.
So thank you, Mrs. Mason. I understand your viewpoint that the original resolution is much broader and more welcoming, or inclusive, and prepares us for future attacks on students of any kind. But for me tonight, the message is about informing our public and individuals who do not have the time nor the expertise to vet and understand all of the ed codes and the federal laws around ICE. And I believe that the second resolution provides hope, and it needs to be in one, the hope and the information needs to be in one document. I appreciate Mr. Schenke's concerns that there may be something additional that we need in board policy, or perhaps there is an error. This resolution was plagiarized by myself from Pittsburgh Unified School District. I'm presuming that their attorney may have vetted it, or they had another source for their original document. And I understand Mr. Schenke's concerns. I believe that we need something stronger to provide the hope for our families and students. For mixed immigration status families, family separation poses serious risks for children, including emotional trauma, housing insecurity, and food insecurity. Immigration policies must not lose sight of the well-being of children and their families. And there's an article that's available on kidsdata.org from the Lucille Packard Foundation that talks about immigrant children and parents in California. Today, 1/2 of California's children have immigrant parents. That translates to 4.5 million children in California alone. In 3 congressional districts, in Los Angeles and the San Francisco Bay Area, more than 75% of the children have at least one immigrant parent. And there is much information on this particular website about the status, and they cite statistical research evidence in regards to the information that they're providing. So I'm in favor of a stronger resolution. If it needs to come back after legal general counsel and other board members have had a chance to wordsmith it a little bit further, that's fine. I do believe we need something tonight, and but I would hope to see something much stronger. Thank you.
Yes. And I guess my only concern is our legal counsel is speaking, so I don't, we paid him, so I don't wanna pay him and ignore his advice. I mean, if there's problems we need to work out first, and there's, I don't know.
Right, I mean, there's just some language in there that conflicts with a couple of different board policies. And
Which ones? Tell us.
Pittsburgh's policies.
we're not in a conversation here, speaking with my client. Thank you. Concerns about board policies, concerns about placing the district staff in a position in which they have no authority. Okay. And it's my job to advise you all to make sure that your staff is following the laws and is cooperating with those folks that need to cooperate with. And to not end up in a situation where they become the focus of enforcement. Okay, that's what we have to deal with. So I have some suggestions. I could write it back here on the back of an envelope, but I don't think the board wants that. So that's.
Tom Torlakson gave his blessing.
Excuse me.
What is the problem?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I just had to say that.
That's not this particular resolution. So at this point, I would be happy to entertain any motion that somebody wants to make. And then we will just vote how we feel. Oh, would you like to weigh in by any chance?
I would just like to say that as I look at the two, and certainly the speakers hit on this, that there are 3 places where they do not overlap. And one is around the interaction with the Immigration Customs Enforcement, which I believe our general counsel was saying something along the relationship there and the requirements there, but that's one. 2 includes the family plans, and that and as I read this one and this one, the idea, if there is not contact information, if a student or child is left without a contact, what is the plan in place? Well, we have other language that already does that. That is another place where they diverge. And the third, as I see it, is surrounding privacy and information sharing and information in our data systems. And that, there's a very high standard about what we can share, and certainly our council can weigh in on that. But if you look at the 2, those 3 points are, as I see it, the difference, unless you all see something more.
And I would say it's, to me, a question of getting something passed tonight that is respectful and then it can be reconsidered. But myself, it's not that you can't modify it, as Mrs. Mayo's discussed a number of points. It's that my own belief is it has to be posted, it has to be vetted, and it has to be vetted through district policy. If there's board policy that's in conflict with that, then those things have to be resolved. And so I would suggest we take action on the posted resolution and then take it back, and I can make a motion to that effect if you like. But I move that the board approve the Safe, Welcoming, and Inclusive Schools resolution as posted on the agenda tonight. And the second piece of that would be if we want to reconsider that in the future, that would be another agenda item, and it could come back vetted and reposted as an updated resolution to consider. And that way we can get it posted on the agenda, and we can have legal counsel vet it, and we can look at board policy in alignment with that. But myself, I'd like to see something on the agenda, something on this issue passed tonight that is going to address some of those anxieties. So my motion would be to approve the resolution that's been posted tonight with future consideration for alternatives.
Okay, we have one motion, we have a second to that motion?
Motion didn't get a second.
Okay. Is there another motion? No motion, we'll just be moving on to the next thing. All righty. Well,
Okay, I'll move, that the board approve the, agenda that was the second, agenda that was, or second item that was provided.
Second.
I have concerns in regards to this, because of Mr. Shanky, because I respect his opinion. If you can provide, what would need to be struck from the resolution, we can amend it so that it provides, the correct language.
I've been struggling with that for the last 2 hours.
I have
so-
a question. Is it possible to pass it as a tentative resolution and revisit it at the next meeting, or does that put us in the
First
same?
reading, second reading,
Yeah.
that's not, I mean, that's, it could, I suppose, there's nothing to prevent you from doing that, but the real concern I have is I'm gonna be perfectly candid with you. I don't want you to have your district staff arrested by federal officers. Okay? And that's the problem. We need to be careful in language when you do that, because you're directing staff to interfere with federal law.
And we don't want our students to be arrested. I'm sorry.
And the interference with law enforcement is a very serious crime. And it has implications to your staff, particularly the superintendent and the principals and the teachers who are involved, the teachers who are here in the room. So I think you need to be real careful with this language, because what you're directing your staff to do is basically throw themselves in front of federal law enforcement. And that's a dangerous, dangerous precedent. So I can suggest language, but I'm telling you that I'm having, I can see my notes here, I've been trying to figure it out for the last 2 hours. I need more time on that. I just am not in a position to say that I could write something in the back of an envelope right now that would be appropriate.
And this is my, perhaps my fault, when I forwarded it to Mrs. Mason, I didn't include Mr. Shanky, yesterday, and perhaps he would have had more time to review it in the 24 hours if he, wasn't watching football. So, do we think we should?
Did you have something you wanted to say, Joanne?
Well, I think they, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the area of question is not allowing IC agents on district site facilities, et cetera, without receiving prior written approval from the superintendent.
There's also an issue concerning student information, because you have a board policy that says you'll cooperate with law enforcement if they have probable cause. So the federal agent comes on the property and says, we're aware of a child who is an undocumented person, and they show you their probable cause, board policy says the district's supposed to cooperate. So it's hard for me to approve a resolution that violates your board policy. So there's two areas. One is the ICE access, and the other is sharing student information. My suggestion would be to I mean, for me, those two particular resolutions are not appropriate at this point. They need to be reworded. Or you need to change your board things.
My first comment would be in terms of, so yeah, I have some discomfort with the fact that we posted one thing but we're making a change, but certainly with Clayton Valley feeder pattern, we set a precedent in terms of we weren't concerned about it then. I think that this issue is incredibly important. If this does not pass, so I think that we have an option to look at, can we make some tweaks to this, or to add in a clause that would give our superintendent some discretion in terms of if there's anything that that conflicts with board policy, or to give our superintendent discretion to cover us from a legal standpoint. Otherwise, we can also look at the Safe Haven resolution that's been passed by Sacramento School District, which is the one that has been cited by Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torres.
But I'm not comfortable doing one that's been sight unseen. And I just want to reiterate, I could be thinking wrong, but anytime we put something on the agenda and post it, and we're going to vote at it at a meeting, it can always change at the meeting.
Of course, yes.
That's what we're here for.
Normally
And
better.
my understanding of the Brown Act is when we receive the information, the community receives it. And so when you guys received the alternative tonight, the community received it as well. My only hesitation here at all is we're in a different world than we used to be, and you hear things like our staff could be arrested, and you think, oh, that'll never happen. Are you kidding me? Just keep on turning the TV. Things are changing rapidly. Things I never thought I'd see since the 60s are happening again. So that's why I want to be cautious, because we're in a different world right now, and I don't want to put any staff, any children, any families, or our superintendent or anyone else at risk. So I guess saying that, I feel more comfortable going with the one that was posted, because it was posted, and saying that we will come back with new language next meeting and revise it at that time. That's my.
I think that was my motion. It may not have come across as clear, but I'd like to reiterate that I think the vetting is important, and I think doing something well is important. And it's important to have this resolution, but it's important to do it right and not have questions arise and issues come forward. That makes me very uncomfortable, because I think you lose credibility and you create a lot more stress and hassle than you help.
So there is nothing wrong with us passing two resolutions, because the stronger language resolution wouldn't be in conflict with the resolution that's on the agenda tonight. The challenge for, I guess I'm sure you will make a commitment that you would be posted on the agenda.
Next meeting.
I want to make it clear that there's no problem with this agenda item as far as the agenda of the Brown Act. The concern I have is the board making a statement that's contrary to its own policy and exposes district employees to, I'll just leave it there, exposes district employees.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mr. Schenke. That's why I'm struggling with this matter. Another resolution that was provided by CTA uses language that says the district shall review its record-keeping policies and practices to assure that no data is being collected with respect to students' immigration status or place of birth, and cease any such collection as it is irrelevant to the educational enterprise and potentially discriminatory. And then there's another similar, be it further resolved item around the ICE that is more general. So, I guess,
I've reviewed that, superintendent provided those to me, and those are perfectly fine. I think they become a little more cognizant of the world in which we operate, as far as the school district is concerned. So,
but see, in violation of the Brown Act, I wouldn't have known what was discussed, so. Didn't know what was discussed.
so, you know, it's a matter of, you wanna do wordsmithing tonight?
No, I can't.
Yeah, please. Those are perfectly fine language, I looked at it.
Okay, the entire resolution, as it was presented.
Well, the parts related to ICE and parts related to student record information.
We don't have that.
Are not contrary to the board.
We all received it by email. But we don't have it. Yes. So,
I would go back and ask the board to do it once and do it well.
wait a minute, we do have a, motion and a second, correct? Okay, are you withdrawn, or? I would prefer the withdraw. Okay. So, we're back to either getting another motion, a new motion, or moving on.
We have a motion.
So,
One.
I would move that we adopt the resolution 1617-31, safe, welcoming, and inclusive schools, as posted on the agenda. And that, general counsel worked with 2 members of the board to provide, an additional resolution to be brought back at the next meeting. Okay, we have a motion to second for comments. Okay, did you get that over there? Brian seconded. I'm sure we have been very confused over there at this point.
Curious resolution.
Okay, that passes 5-0-0. Thanks the board and the public for your patience on that. Okay,
Nobody knows what you passed.
so we now are on to the exciting board member reports. You want to start, Joanne?
Joanne, so several of us, or a few of us, attended the Greater Concord Chamber of Commerce annual mayor's luncheon. Mayor Hoffmeister presented her city address, the state of Concord. A lot of buildings, a lot of people there. It was interesting to me, a lot of conversation about attracting and retaining and appealing to millennials. So I'm not sure what that does for the rest of us, but we're on a nice one. Yeah, we're on a nice one. So it was very interesting. They also recognized the Concord Chamber and the city recognized several businesses who have made outstanding contributions to the community. So it was a very positive event. I attended 2 meetings. Again, you've heard me talk. You probably hear me talk about this every time. It related to the adult ed work that's going on and a new look at the needs of adult learners throughout Contra Costa County, throughout the state, actually. So I'm keeping my fingers on that pulse also. Really good work going on. I had the opportunity to attend a 2-day training offered by the California School Boards Association in Sacramento for new board members, since I'm the only new board member. I was there by myself, which was fine. I was really impressed. It was very, very good. I felt like it was really excellent training by very experienced people. But one of the benefits of having gone to many conferences, the benefits of time like that, you kind of have to sit quietly and think about this stuff. So that was really helpful. We talked about research that shows school board stability and the ability to function as a team. And I mean, I know you all know this, so just bear with me as a newbie, but is directly related to student outcomes, which is really fascinating. They talked about some research called the Lighthouse research. I guess that was very interesting. I brought some materials for my friends here. And again, you guys have seen all this, but I figured it wouldn't hurt to get a refresher, right? So here's and also for the public, because I think we can then post this, right? So 8 characteristics of effective school boards at a glance. I brought copies from the on that. It's really nice brochure. And again, I'm saying this for the public's benefit also, that, there's actually research that talks about how school board members, or school boards as a group and individual members, can be most effective. So this little brochure kind of talks about all 3 of those for the individual trustee, the board, and the board's job, so that we don't forget what our job is. I'll share that with you also. Of course, you'll hear, I'm sure Dr. Meyer is going to talk about this, but she was also there. This Best Day is an annual event hosted by the Concord Chamber, John Muir Health in Concord, the Contra Costa Economic Partnership, and of course Mount Auburn Unified, where our teachers have an opportunity to go shadow in local companies for a half a day. I was one of the people that used to put that on, so it was fun to go back in a different role. And always, what's the most exciting part is they go out for the morning and they come back for lunch, and they're just transformed. People that were maybe a little lukewarm about the activity when they came in, when they come back and start talking about with their business partner who hosted them, they're so excited and just so excited about what they can immediately talk about how I'm bringing this back to the classroom and the differences. So just reinforces the value of that activity. I had my first joint meeting with the city council, which happened to be Pleasant Hill, which is interesting for me since I live in Pleasant Hill. That was a very interesting experience, I'd say that. And I went to visit Ayers Elementary just because as long as I work, I've never actually been there. And as we're talking about, Ayers and rocketship, I felt like I just needed a visual. So it really was just for me strictly to get a visual. The lovely principal, Laura Castillo, was great. She took time out to show me all around. And so I can now see, when I'm hearing some of the issues that are being raised. It's a beautiful campus, really lovely. So anyway, I did that for a few hours.
I'm actually going to pass.
Okay.
I attended numerous meetings, many of which the rest of you have attended. One of them was a reception at the County Office of Education for outgoing trustees Daniel Gomes and Pam Mirabella. It was a very heartwarming reception for them, to thank them for their years of service, and it was great to see the community turn out for them. And then I would also like to mention that on March 17th, the Contra Costa County Science and Engineering Fair is holding its annual competition for grades 7 through 12 in 6 subject areas of science projects, and I am the judge recruiter for that particular event. I need at least 140 judges, and you start at 7 o'clock in the morning and you finish about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you have a wonderful experience with students' science projects and understanding the science that they are promoting and their enthusiasm around science. So if you're interested at all in this project, please contact me. Thank you. I see one hand right there. March 17th.
Is that a Saturday or Sunday?
It's a Friday. The students set up their projects on Friday. The judges review their poster boards in the morning, and they interview the students in the afternoon.
Mr. Lawrence?
I'll limit my board report to one topic, which is I have great faith in our superintendent and our staff to protect our most vulnerable students. I am looking forward to our board coming back with a more comprehensive policy. I think it's incredibly important, especially in light of the fact that Jeff Bell, a member of the Contra Costa Board of Education, has come out in strong support of President Trump's immigration policy. I think that is chilling and disturbing and should be something that every voter is aware of. And I look forward to us addressing this issue again in 2 weeks.
Okay, and I'll be very brief. I went to several meetings, the Loma Vista Health Fair, the LCAP Speaker Series at Northgate, Equity Committee, the Pleasant Hill Joint Meeting. I was at the lottery process that was held in this room for 2 hours this morning to see how that went. And I always try to go to different meetings where there's possible collaborations. So I went to one that's a new committee that's Contra Costa County's park partnership that they're forming, and one of the things they're looking at is local doctors actually prescribing parks as a health benefit. If you have high blood pressure, they prescribe, like, go to Tilden Park and walk on these trails. And another one is East Contra Costa County with the Los Menanos Community Healthcare District is forming a community health partnership to, it sounds like, work basically with our homeless families, which includes Bay Point. So that's my report, and now we'll go to the superintendent's report.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for your comments, because as you probably feel, I feel disappointed that we weren't able to have something tonight. So I wanted to share that from the dais and say that it looks like there are 3 areas of disagreement, and there's language that is available that will help bridge that, so you all can make a decision. So in moving forward, I wanted to share that as was discussed, the Concord mayor had a speech where she talked about all the things that are going to new businesses, etc., and the chamber co-partnered this particular event. We also had the Pleasant Hill speech on the state of Pleasant Hill to see how they're doing. They emphasized their library. That was the main thing that they were working on, and where that library will be has not been determined. I do also want to share that as part of our new regional magnet with science and technology at Sun Terrace, that we had Scott Kelly, who was up in space for over a year. He came to speak to the 5th graders at Sun Terrace, and he really enjoyed the questions. They had wonderful questions, and it was a kickoff to the fact that this is a technology, engineering, and science school, and they've really had a lot of work they've already done in that area. And his comments on what it was like for him up in space really captivated the students. As was mentioned, we've had an LCAP speaker series, and this is the speaker series on mathematics. The speaker really did a great job of talking about the differences in mathematics and how with Common Core standards that we're asking different things of our students. And so he had a great crowd, and we look forward to our next speaker series. We have 2 more. In looking at our best day, a little blurry, but this is the part where the teachers spoke about what they learned from that half day of shadowing somebody who is in the industry that they teach. And so there you have the teachers speaking about their day and how it went at John Muir Hospital. And then we also have, in addition to the speaker series, in addition to the presentations that we do in the evening, we have a community advisory that has been working with the LCAP. And here we're working with West Ed to talk about what we need to do in that area. And then moving forward as well, Wendy Aguili, our Executive Director of Special Education, she spoke about how to write an IEP, what parents' rights are around an IEP, and how important it is to know those rights. And then today we had a day where the students were home and all of the teachers and staff came to work. Here we have our counselors. They were elementary counselors were working on how to support our elementary students. We also had our bus drivers who had cultural inclusion lessons on what to do, what to know, what they should know when working with students on their buses. We also had here on the left, we have Mount Diablo High School teachers studying the effects of poverty on students. And then on the right, we have our teacher who was appointed vice principal looking at equity at Cambridge Elementary School. And then moving forward, while we had a lot of people learning, those poles do not paint themselves. And you can see the gentleman out at work because we really have to rely on the time when students are away to find those windows when we can take care of the buildings, etc. And then this morning as well, we had a group of our community liaisons who worked on Project Inspire. And this is a training where they work with parents and parents go through classes. They have 10 evenings that they dedicate and they receive a certificate at the end. And then also we had our office managers and registrars who were trained on how to look for attendance needs and how to work with our new ARIES program that is now online. And then in honor of African American history, we have a variety of things that are happening across the district. We're halfway through, and we have had students doing everything from poetry, from dance. We've had assemblies, we've had writing, and this is the story of Rosa Parks. And then also of significance, Holbrook Elementary School, which closed in 2010, had their kindergarten registration on February 7th. And so it looked like they had up to 2 classrooms full of kindergartners who came and are very interested in looking at attending Holbrook, which would be a language cultural immersion school. And we have a lot of work that we're doing through Measure C and facilities to bring it up to par so it's ready for the opening. And then just lastly to share that our next LCAP speaker series will be on student resiliency, and that will be held at Riverview Middle School at 6 p.m. on the 22nd. And then our last will be around the budget and the impacts of the budget. And that will be a presentation that we will have that will share how it looks like the budget is flattening out a little bit and what that means for us as a district. So that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we have a report on our garden education program. Should have called you up when we had a packed house, huh?
Well, that's okay. I know everyone will be attentive listeners. I did come with a village of folks here behind me. As you can tell, we've got principals, we've got outdoor educators. So maybe if you all can maybe kind of come up a little bit and you'll introduce yourself as the slides come up. So good morning, President Mason, Mount Diablo board members, Dr. Meyer. I'm Jennifer Sachs. I'm the Executive Director of Instructional Support. And it's my pleasure this evening to bring you an update on our NGSS in the Garden, MDOSD Garden Education Program. And it connects beautifully to something actually board members have shared, such as the STEM fair and the what being prescribed, a little bit of time outside. Well, good news, we've got some places that you can visit. So that being said, we're going to keep this very brief, and I'm going to invite Anna Fisher up here, our Director of Nutritional Services, to get us started.
Okay.
Oh, am I forwarding things?
Yo, oh.
Okay, all right. Good evening. So I'll keep this real brief, and in order to be accurate, I'm just gonna read what I have written. Our overall goal with the USDA Farm to School Planning Grant was to increase student consumption of fruits and vegetables. We plan to do that by increasing student exposure to growing, preparing, and eating fruits and vegetables through experiential learning. This built excitement in the students and the staff, and of course, we also wanted to increase some local procurement, which the USDA wanted to see that we were focused on. And that local procurement impacts the local economy, so it's very valuable. Our efforts also were planned to tie to the district wellness policy, LCAP goals, as well as to align with the graduate profile, core curriculum standards, and NGSS. We also wanted to focus on interventions that could be rolled out district-wide and be sustainable, and most importantly, be acceptable to classroom teachers. So the foundation of our planning was that we would come up with a program that would give these kinds of academic experiences to all students in every school, and not just temporarily while we had the grant and then go away. We convened an advisory board that brought together site administrators, classroom teachers, parents. I think I should advance this because you'll see all of the people that helped us. School board members, parents, committed community organizations. And I also have to say that one of the things that gave us the most traction was having Tamara Helper and Jennifer Sachs, who spearheaded this whole thing and brought everyone in all these organizations together, so that we are now in our second year continuing with these efforts even without the grant.
So good evening, everybody. Just continuing straight along, we had a lot of different kinds of activities for our planning grant. The idea was to survey all of the elementary schools to see what kinds of farm to school activities we already had around educational activities. So we did that. We also, as Anna said, we surveyed procurement to see how many local food and food products we were serving in our cafeterias, and we put in fundamentally changed how we do procurement in the district so that we can now track local procurement. We did a variety of educational activities, including teacher professional development on Common Core in the Garden. We had a family education night at Fair Oaks that the CARES team at Fair Oaks put together. We did in-school lessons at Fair Oaks and Sequoia Elementary, and by far the most far-reaching effort we had was doing weekly garden educations at Sequoia Elementary, which Terry Edwards Nixon, who's hopping on crutches tonight, piloted in weekly lessons throughout the entire school lesson last year for first, second, and third grade, and that really has become the pilot and the basis for everything that we're doing moving forward. Let's see, let me just skip ahead very quickly and talk about some very nice recognition we've received. We're pleased to have been nominated for a Green Community Award last year and again this year from the City of Pleasant Hill. We were nominated and received a Leadership and Sustainability Award through the Contra Costa County Sustainability Group, which also garnered recognition from Congressman Mark DeSaulnier, Senator Stephen Glazer, Assemblywoman Kathleen Baker. We got a very nice plaque and a delightful water bottle from Central Sanitary District. So it's just been, there's been a widespread activities recognition. We're really pleased to be moving forward. And I think one of the things that became really important for the planning activities and for for where we are right now and moving forward is working together with the principals, working together with the teachers to make sure that everything we do has double duty, in that it's not just doing garden education, wellness education, but it's also tied to NGSS standards, it's tied to Common Core, it's hitting health and nutrition standards. So it's really, instead of being an added burden on the teachers, it's designed to help them do what they're already doing. And we're trying to give them a leg up with that. And finally, the last thing that we did as part of the implementation grant was the planning grant was to write an implementation plan that set out the future of what we're trying to do, which is what we've been doing this year and what we hope to do in the future.
So, a very quick video, it's like 2 minutes, and it kind of puts all into perspective all of the work that was done with the planning grant.
What we're trying to do with all Farm to School programs is produce children and adults who are making better choices about eating and exercising. We want to promote wellness in our adult population, and we want to do that by educating children who will grow up to have healthier habits.
This is healthy, this, but not this.
I got a great understanding of seeing planting the seeds, making the compost, watching the plants, as they grow, and then cooking with that food, and then finally eating that food.
Awesome.
We want our kids to recognize the produce and to want to come into our cafeterias and enjoy this healthy local produce.
I'd like more California Thursdays.
This lesson is part of a bigger project, which is our Mount Diablo Farm to School program, where we're piloting lessons about healthy eating and about gardening and about where our food comes from and about nutrition and exercise as a way of integrating these components into curriculum that the children are already supposed to be learning in school.
And if we want to be healthy, there are two really important things to do. We need to exercise. What is the second thing we need to do to be healthy? We need to eat healthy foods.
Laying the foundation in elementary school is important for a lot of reasons, because the kids are like sponges. They're learning the foundation of what their bodies need to be healthy. It's just a lot easier with the curriculum integration across subjects as well. The ultimate goal is to have people who are making better choices about eating and about exercise.
I really do want to thank Tamara Helper for her assistance with that. She was the one that kind of helped make sure that, I guess we had pages and pages of notes to make sure that it was exactly right, our wonderful little video. So moving from there to our schools, because we have 4 schools that have actually embarked on NGSS outside. So really kind of repurposing their outdoor spaces. It's not just going out into the garden just to be there, but it's really incorporating that content as the video spoke about that was coming out of the classroom into the garden and then cycling back into the classroom. So we're first going to have the principal of Bancroft Elementary, and she will share about her program and introduce her garden educator.
Good evening. I'm Linda Schuler, and this is Maria Belkin. She's our garden educator. Bancroft has had, I'm going to move this forward, right? Yeah.
The error.
Yep, there it is. Okay. So the fun part, you getting to see some of the kids in action here. And I think I just want to highlight a few things. One is that our students, kindergarten through 5th grade, are getting an opportunity to be in the garden, with an emphasis on our 4th graders having more time in the garden. It's part of a STEAM rotation that we have with engineering, art, and the garden, and the students are getting quite a bit of speaking and listening practice, obviously, in this setting, a lot of physical fitness in this setting, writing. I don't know if you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, but the arts are involved as we design sort of a sitting area, and there's artwork around the little gazebo-looking trellis there is all mosaic tiles that the kids built. And there's just a lot of community pride. Volunteer groups want to come in and help out, and our students, I'll let Maria talk a little bit about what the students are doing. The earthworms were quite the and it's evolved into now a location where kids can choose to go for recess and work in the garden with, you know, coordination between the teacher and the garden coordinator. So we're really proud to be able to offer opportunities that really speak to our children with where they like to be and spend their time. I'll turn this over and share it with you. And I really want to thank Tamara, who helped, and Jen, who really helped us put this together. And it's been the one thing I think our Bancroft community parents, kids, there's no one who isn't behind this 150%.
Thank you, Linda. Well, you can see there's a lot going on. In the upper right-hand corner, there are some students that are using their math skills to try to determine the best, most accurate way of measuring a zucchini, which is obviously three-dimensional. And so I could go on and on about the interest and the excitement that the students had in first experimenting with rulers and then measuring tapes and then working some geometry in, and they got to that place where they were able to use a little bit more advanced math skills. So we're incorporating math, we're incorporating certainly science experimentation skills. There's a lot of inquiry going on, a lot of questioning and answering. The students are experiencing the garden, but they're also coming up with new things to try to figure out. So it isn't set up initially for them in its entirety. There's a lot of back and forth about what types of experiments they are curious about. And you can go in a zillion different directions with kids. It's just basically based on their curiosity and their questions. So we have absolutely compost making, we have worm experimentation. The fifth graders are putting in a pollinator garden, which is part of an exploration that they're doing about the issue of the decline in our pollinator population, not just locally, across the state of California, nationally, even globally. There are dramatic declines in our pollinators, both butterflies and bees. So they're learning about that, they're learning about pollination. A lot of this is NGSS and fifth grade science standards. And then they're actually putting in a demonstration garden, which will then be able to be utilized by the whole campus, kindergarten to fifth, in the years to come. So that's just a little tidbit of what we have going on so far. Thank you.
Okay, Elmont.
Right, Marion. All right, good evening, board. I'm Jennifer Molina, the principal at El Monte Elementary School, and this is my amazing garden educator, Marion Woodard. And I feel so lucky to have gotten her from Rogers Ranch. She was one of the original founders of Rogers Ranch and a permaculture teacher there. We've been strong believers in permaculture for many years, and if you don't know what that is, it's earth care, people care, and fair share. And as my green team likes to say, AKA don't hoard the pickles. So we have had, yes, fair share. We really focus on the environmental sciences at El Monte. We believe in raising up global citizens that can take care of our planet. And so this is the logical next step for us in having that garden pilot. When we had that original discussion at El Monte about who would pilot, 100% of our teachers were all in, and they are very excited to have this. We currently, Marion sees all of our students TK through 5th grade every other week, and our 5th graders get 60 minutes. And in addition to that, on Friday afternoons, I teach a group of Green Team kids who are just wanting to learn a little bit more on Friday afternoons. So we have chickens on campus. We also use our rabbits and actually a snake, not in the same cage, for our PBIS. So our students want to earn bunny visit. They want to earn time with the chickens. And we also very intentionally put our gardens, our main focus garden, in front of our fences. because we wanted our community to come to our gardens anytime and pick those vegetables, and the only caveat is you have to eat them. So we wanted our community members to come in and to partner with us and to enjoy the garden as well as our students. And have Marion speak this part.
Good evening. When I was learning permaculture, Jeff Walton, my mentor, said that if everyone could eat something that had been out of the ground under 3 hours, we would watch our immune systems dramatically change. So it does my heart incredible good to watch the kids race into the garden and not just can I eat this, but how much of this can I eat? So to have young kids get excited about eating dinosaur kale, which is not for the faint of heart. The parsley, it's just like, what can I eat? What can I eat? They are fearless. And I go to First Generation Farmers on Tuesdays because they have, I go to the farmers markets, and they have a plaque that says, take what you need, pay what you can. They will give me, because I'll say, I'm going to El Monte, we're doing garden education. They give me all of this produce. So my goal is to take a vegetable back each week and stump the kids. What is this? Kohlrabi was it last week. So they love it, and they get excited about it. I get excited about it. We're getting exercise. We're stimulating our pineal glands because we're outside getting some sun when it's not raining. So I am so grateful to have this chance, because I know that if we can get people side by side, elbow to elbow in the garden, we can grow community, and the byproduct is food. Thank you.
Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah. We'll have to learn to. What's that? Okay. Oh, there we go. So, good evening, everyone. These are some of our beautiful kids. This is our first year doing organized garden education. The garden's been there only 3 years, so not that long. And we're still, you can see it still looks a little rough and maybe a little underplanted, but we've been so lucky to have Tamara as our garden educator, kind of by default, but she volunteered, and there she is, and we worked that out. We're actually using the garden as a great way to get out of classrooms, get into a non-classroom situation for learning. We're a Title I school, and they just don't get that many opportunities to get out often with their families or in school. So we're really focusing, say academically, well, there's the science, the science part of it too, but really we're using it more as a language lab. We're using the science notebooks that we've been, trying to implement the last couple of years. Most of our teachers are using those as a writing, vocabulary, even conversation kind of an opportunity. And Tamara's got a lot of tasting going on. Kids are getting to try things that they normally probably wouldn't. And I think we started out because I personally have a real interest in the nutrition end of it. But we've had that the night where you saw me dancing, not so gracefully. But, the kids now, it's moving, well, we've gone past just the initial stages of it to where the kids are expecting to go and wanting to go, and the rain has been, as we've all found, kind of a problem. We're doing classroom lessons, but Tamara's been able to move those around, so it's not just all depending on being outside. But I really want to see more scientific language growing with the kids, and we've got a couple of teachers doing a great job with the notebooks and that language tie-in, with high English learner population. That's what I'm trying to focus on, and we hope to be able to keep it going. So it's not going to be one and done. I hope to keep it going for somebody else after you move on, take your place, keep it expanding and growing, right? I know we're not going to be lucky to keep the head of the operation.
I'm just going to give props to all the principals, because it's really their support that leads the school and sets the tone for the students, for the teachers. The teachers have been, nearly universally on board, which has been really easy for us then. I'm kind of a hack as a gardener, so the rest of the garden educators are helping me do all this stuff. But let's bring Sequoia up here to have their fill.
Good evening, my name is Glenda Lee Gasca. I'm the new principal at Sequoia, and I've only been here about 3 months, but I'm very happy and impressed with this program, especially with those chickens. I want chickens in Sequoia.
Yes,
Okay,
let's have
write it down. So I'm gonna let Terry, our wonderful garden teacher, speak.
Good evening. So this is my second year. I've been fortunate enough to be with this program for the second year now. I concur with everything that the other garden educators said about the program. I feel very fortunate to be able to do what I love and be surrounded by 270 wonderful little brains just absorbing all of this wonderful information and being hands-on in the garden. So I feel very fortunate. A couple of the things that we've done this year is we did a lettuce experiment where we were trying to see which variety of lettuce grew the fastest. So we had 4 different types of lettuce in a planter box, and you know, all the variables had to be the same amount of soil, same amount of seeds, and we measured it weekly. And yes, first graders can use a ruler and read centimeters. So we did that, and then at the end of 4 weeks, we ate our results. So it was wonderful. The kids keep a science journal, which is wonderful to see the things that they write and draw in their journals weekly. And now that it's not raining, I can't wait to get back out into the garden. So thank you very much.
Which one grows the fastest? Inquiring minds want to know.
Oh, you know, the one that grew the fastest was salad blend. Salad blend. And the red cantrix was not Salad blend to the public. That is what grows fastest. Okay, so just some upcoming events. So we have submitted an implementation grant, and really the focus of that is to go a bit deeper with what we did with the planning. You know, focused on procurement, focused on really, you know, opening up our students' understanding of different foods and nutrition. But it's also to go deeper with the curriculum. Establishing a true scope and sequence that could be, you know, lifted and brought to school if they do indeed have a love, a passion, a need to have an outdoor education space similar to what you've seen is really what we're focusing on. Also the idea of embedded career exploration. So just because you work in the garden does not mean that it's a gardener, that would be the only career you're looking at. There's many different types of careers and professions. So part of our work is actually being supported by our CTE grant. So we're trying to kind of cross some of these initiatives and projects together. Of course, you know, the in-school field trip idea, you know, that we either through the cafeteria or out to the garden is something. But really those lesson plans and the scope and sequence is really what we're hoping that we can get the funding for from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, so then we can really spend some time really, you know, like I said, creating a curriculum that can be moved from school to school and something that's going to be very much aligned with the next generation science standards. Because we're always focusing on, you know, how do we know it's working? What about return on investments? What do the teachers think? This is actually a survey that Tamara put together, a very simple one in the fall of 2016, about teachers' thoughts about garden education before and then after they had about 6 to 8 weeks of an experience, whether or not it's something that they strongly agreed that it was something that they would want to continue. And as you can see, that bottom bar is it has definitely increased over that time. Also, some teacher comments. You know, the one that really sticks out to me is the garden program has enhanced learning in all areas of writing, science, art, vocabulary, and math. And it is something that, you know, instead of it being an add-on to the curriculum and just an after-school experience, we're trying to have it much more embedded into the school day. And so I want to, again, as Tamara said, highlight the work that the principals have been doing in order to support this on their campuses. So that being said, a wonderful Montessori quote, education is a natural process carried out by the child and is not acquired by listening to words, but by experiences in the environment. And so I'm prescribing time outside for everybody to make sure and this is now something happening, as Ms. Mason, because it is something where you do see students really, engaging in areas and curriculum and experiences that we not normally do. They just don't have that experience and they just thrive. So that being said, we've got wonderful individuals here that can answer any of your questions, and we appreciate your time.
I do have
Wow.
First of all, how do you become a garden educator? And is it by default? You raised your hand first.
From the person who's really not a garden educator. As project director for the project, I knew who I wanted for every one of these schools,
So
knowing
it's
something
recruitment.
about them. So, I mean, Terry is a parent, so Sequoia Elementary, Sequoia Middle, and put in a lot of volunteer effort, and I knew at home she did a phenomenal job with garden education. Marion is a master gardener, master composter, has been in countless hours at Rogers Ranch and beyond. She leads classes at DVC in the horticulture department, and she's phenomenal. And I knew that she and Jen Molino were sort of two peas in a pod, and that it was not hard to hook the two of them up. Maria Belkin is a certificated science teacher. She's got a master's in public health. She's she's taught AP Environmental Science in the San Ramon Unified School District. So with Bancroft's emphasis on NGSS and being sort of at the forefront of rolling out NGSS with their phenomenal program, she was a natural match to theirs. So we have been fortunate in getting these amazing garden educators. They're all natural gardeners, they've studied that, but they're also phenomenal teachers, which I think is arguably more important since, I'm the case in point for that because I can teach, but I don't know much about gardening. So I've been able to learn a little bit enough to do that. But it's different from a lot of programs where they have young people who are very enthusiastic, but maybe don't have a lot of experience teaching, who come in and as a stepping stone for the next thing that they're doing. And they're wonderful role models too, but we have this team of experienced, it's a nice way of saying middle-aged people who are, well, the big picture is for what we're trying to do, especially in these pilot years, is we're trying to get established in the schools. So once we can get the scope and sequence, the lesson plans that Jennifer talked about, up and going in a more portable way, then maybe we can rely again more on these younger people who can come in and hand them a booklet of lessons and they can run with it. But right now, all of these people are developing lessons on the fly. Some of them aren't going to get much sleep tonight. That's why we start tomorrow morning.
So then if I could just ask too on that it has its roots in Pleasant Hill, I guess, the grant sprung there. And so I heard a little bit of a mention of trying to replicate or expand this into other schools. I know the grants ended, but what you're developing is something that's replicated. And then my second part to that is because it's such a great, exciting, I would have been a better eater. I probably wouldn't be sitting here today, but had I as a child sort of lived through this. So I'm wondering about replicating or expanding it. And the second question I had is about middle school, high school, where things can just fall apart on you. You learn all this wonderful nutrition and then you get to middle school and high school. So I don't know if it's pretty ambitious, but I'm just throwing it out there in terms of the vision and the goals around this because it really is a great learning experience for kids.
It is. I think really though what we've known about programs such as this is you want to build on success. When we started to take a look at different campuses being kind of coming into the planning grant, it was one where we knew Fair Oaks had a definite interest, Sequoia had a definite interest, and then we started to ask the other elementary schools what their interest was. There were many that came to our interest meeting, and really what a group of them decided was they were fine having it being part of their after school program and something that maybe was more parent generated, but then you have a group of principals such as the ones behind me that were like, you know what, we want it embedded in the school day. So because we had administrators that worked with teachers in order to really commit to something where it would be an adjustment to their school day and the way they provided instruction, we decided that this would be the group that we would really work with together, and then by word of mouth or interest, we would then build on the success and what we've learned from these programs. With regards to middle school and high school, we'll just have to kind of, wait and see and really, you kind of go slow to go fast in some of these circumstances, and you want to be able to sustain it and then build appropriately without, kind of running around and throwing money, and then you don't really have the readiness or the understanding of the background or the expertise available in order to make sure it really takes root. Haha. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that, you just race out and throw it in every school, but what you're doing is developing a strong foundation. So then I always look to how that can be spread among other schools when there's an interest. That's why I ask how you become a garden educator and how formalized this is. And it's just, the person with his or her arm twisted. But as you build the foundation, it's such good work that you could push it out elsewhere, perhaps, if there's an interest.
And there are a couple of schools that have already said they would be very interested in hearing more the next year and the next year out. We're just a little bit cautious. We want to just make sure that we're building on a strong foundation, as you just said.
And then my final question, and I'll stop, is I know it started after school and it's moved because there's a cooperation into some of the school days. So how much time would kids spend during the school day participating now? And that's probably opening it up for more kids.
It really depends on the school at Sequoia, and we're trying to meet the needs of the school. So instead of being a program that comes in and says, here we are, take us, we're working with the schools to meet their needs. So last year, working with David Franklin at Sequoia Elementary, the principal at the time, he met with the teachers and they determined that first, second, third grade would be best served. So they're meeting weekly with first, second, third grade. And they continue that this year. The other 3 schools are meeting essentially every other week, but with all grades. So TK through grade 5, including the special ed kids as well, the SDC kids. And that's true at Bancroft has grades 3 and 4 having weekly lessons, as well as the other grades are having lessons every other week. That's definitely something that we, as garden educators, have talked about together moving forward to see, because it's when you have weekly lessons, it's very easy to connect week to week. If you have lessons every other week, it's much harder to connect. So you need standalone lessons, and it's harder to do things like the lettuce experiment when you see the kids only every 2 weeks, and then it's raining one of those weeks, so then you see them once a month. So that's definitely something that we're working through with every school. Typically, most of our classes are 45 minutes. Sequoia has hour-long classes for first, second, third, and Almonte for their upper grades, 5th grade has 1-hour classes. Typically for our kinders and our like the SDC K through 2 at Fair Oaks, we have half an hour for those kids. So, but most of the classes are 45 minutes every 2 weeks.
Thank you all for your creativity and commitment. It's really very interesting to hear the details of how it turned out, so thank you.
I'm really happy to see it because 16 years ago, Rich Clark, who worked for the district at this time, and I started the 2-acre garden at Riverview Middle School. And then when Maria Shriver was the First Lady of California, we got that funding and started 11 more gardens. And I always was so sad that I didn't see the regular school day out there, only the after-school program. And I will tell you, there's not a topic that I found that you cannot teach in the garden. It's amazing. And I, as far as teams, I do 10 teams every summer at Bay Point, primarily from Mount Debo High School and Gateway, and summer intern, and it's life-changing for them to work in the garden for 6 weeks. So thank you for carrying that torch forward now. Brian, you have comments?
Well, I was just going to say, so thank you. This is fantastic. I'm sure Dr. Meyer and Mr. Espinoza take note of the principles, because I agree. I think you're hearing from our board, this should not be an after-school program. It should be core to what we do. Yes, Anna. And you know, Anna and I have talked about this before. And it's, I mean, we touched on all the great things that are happening, but the flip side is when you look at what our kids eat and when you consider the impact on their health, and also, and you know, take this from someone who showed up in high school, and I'm sure they didn't do this at my rival high school of Claremont, but at University City, I showed up with a Coke and a Pop-Tart for breakfast. I actually got it there on school campus. And when you look at what the impact on student learning is from the sugar and the fact that childhood obesity and we have new types of disease. We have juvenile diabetes in a way that we did not have 20 years ago, and it's directly attributed to food. And the one thing that changes kids' eating patterns is, as Mrs. Mason was saying, getting out in the garden. When they won't touch zucchini, eat zucchini until they've touched zucchini and understand where it came from, and then they take a pride and ownership and they grow to love these things. And so I fully appreciate the need to build on success, but my question would be, how can we build on success faster? Because I want to see this in every elementary school, every middle school, every high school as quickly as possible.
I was trying not to be overly stressed before.
I know. It's on the counterpoint, yes.
But spread it, yeah, spread it.
So, as I mentioned before, we're really working with the administrators, and we do have quite a few that have already kind of approached us. Again, you know, we work with them. This is co-funded. There's some site funds as well as some district funds that go together on it. And that's also to kind of make sure that there's a shared commitment involved. The idea of middle and high school hasn't really been broached, but I will absolutely check in with my counterparts, Mr. Halloran and Mr. Egan. I don't know if they're here. I'm not going to turn around. And so we'll keep you up to date and to see. I have no doubt that it will be expanding. Again, finding such wonderful outdoor educators, you don't just generally bump into, well, Tamara bumps into them all the time. Other people don't. So, but we're going to make sure that we, you know, kind of keep our eye out and see where are those opportunities. We have need opportunities with regards to garden areas, as well as, you know, garden educators, as well as a principal that's willing, teachers that are really wanting to kind of take that risk and open up their doors and walk out. So all of those things are parts of the puzzle.
I just wanted to share that we do have middle and high with the Wellness Challenge, and at Mount Diablo High School, we have a gardening program, and Anna has hired an environmental science menu person who is part of rethinking what our food looks like for every school. So that's very exciting. I believe it is even on the agenda tonight to look at, in addition to having someone at the high school level, like we have with the program where we have the towers and the lettuce and all of those things that have been happening at Mount Diablo High School. So it's really something to aspire to, and I know our elementary schools are looking at having some of those garden towers and having the students come from the high schools to work at the elementaries.
And we have been working collaboratively with them, so we've been sharing ideas. I met with that person for a couple hours this week, in fact, and we've been since the beginning, we've been in conversation with each other, making sure that we're assisting where we can, and certainly not stepping on each other's toes where that might happen. I wanted to also just point out that one of the things about this year's program is that we sort of deliberately went to 2 Title I schools and 2 schools in more affluent areas, because we want a program that's portable, that meets the diverse needs of our community, and that means it has to be inherently flexible. It's been fascinating to know what works at every school and what really doesn't work at every school. And you know, it's really Jennifer's vision to do that too. And it brings in our parent support communities for those schools that are more affluent in Title I, resources for those that meet that concern. So we're really trying to do something that isn't just fitting one particular demographic. And to Brian's point about the Pop-Tarts, I mean, we often see that the kids in the Title I schools who are all having their, Anna's lunches are eating well. And the ones in some of the more affluent areas are bringing their Pop-Tarts. So it's a need across economic barriers and across the demographics. So we're hoping to address all of it. Thank you.
Madam President, I would suggest we skip ahead and look at the extension of the meeting.
Yeah.
Go down that aisle. I'd be happy to make a motion to extend tonight's meeting until 11:30 p.m. which of course we can be done sooner, but I want to make it adequate.
Do we have do we need a second?
Yes.
Come on, Brian, you second.
I want a meeting extension.
Choking on it.
Then more enthusiastic, it'll last.
We're gonna shoot for 11, Brian. We're gonna shoot for 11.
I just, don't want to stress.
We are. And I think we have one speaker card. Okay. So, items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved or adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. Is there any desire from any of the board members to pull any items? No. We do have one speaker. Dan Reynolds. On 1431.
Hello again. 1431 deals with the approval of minutes from a previous board meeting. Board meeting agendas are important and the minutes are important. I'm sad that you were so locked to the agenda tonight and unwilling to exercise your authority to really do the work to pass a meaningful resolution protecting our students and their families. I hope that over the next 2 weeks, none of our families are torn apart and none of our students are taken out of our schools while you all sit around and do work that you could have done tonight. Meaningful actions take work, and you could have done that work tonight. You had the resources available to you, and you have shown in the past that you are not afraid to do the work late into the night to get it done when it matters. You could have done it tonight.
Thank you.
Madam President, I move that the board approve the consent agenda as listed.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. District organizations, I believe we have a speaker.
Annie, if she's still here.
Annie, no.
Oh, she is here. She looks exhausted.
Sorry, Annie.
It's okay.
We're just getting started.
No, I'm going home. Either that or a break, I don't know, one or the other after this. President Mason, Superintendent, Board. Well, actually, Layla came out and informed me that, because I was also here to speak about what happened to the Me Too's and what's going on with that. But Layla came out of her office and said, "Oh, I can meet with you." I said, "Oh, good," because I came to talk about it. And the other thing, I was actually pleased to see you revised your safe haven statement because it was very weak and it didn't make a very bold statement. Actually, I like the one that was done tonight. It seems better. Students should never be ashamed or afraid to say who they are or where they come from. And that the CTA one, it seems like you could just take out a couple paragraphs and, you know, the ones that there's a concern about and replace them with the CTA ones. And you could actually do that tonight. And, you know, the students might feel a little more supported. Because things seem to be happening really, really fast in this country. 2 weeks may be a long time for some of them. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Dorothy.
Good evening, Dr. Meyer and board. What's left of the audience. First of all, I'd like to say I would just go ahead and change our board policy also. Maybe you guys should look into changing the board policy around what you working with the law enforcement. Anyway, with that said, I'm here tonight to speak about SELPA, the concerns that with the Public Policy Institute of California report that was received, that we received on February 2nd of this year. I'm just going to read you excerpts of what, and if you guys have any more questions for me, you guys know how to reach me. So, we disagree with the report's conclusion on the current special education funding model is not compatible with the local control funding formula, principles, transparency, local control, and accountability. Special education local plan, SELPA, maintain community advisory committees which provide a means to gather parent, teacher, and community input. While these structures function differently than those included in the creation of the district budget and local control and accountability plan, they are no less important for transparency, shaping services for students with disabilities. The existing Ed Code created the SELPA, the Superintendent's Governance Committee of the SELPAs is a decision-making group for the SELPA. Therefore, the Superintendent's Governance Committee must conduct meetings in accordance with the provisions of the Brown Act. Additionally, Community Advisory Committee, while the Advisory Committee is also required to conduct meetings in accordance with the provisions of the Brown Act. The local control, the responsibility to educate students with disabilities resides with the school district where the student is enrolled. Under the current system, special education funding is allocated to SELPAs. The manner in which the SELPA allocates funds to its member school districts is determined by SELPA's Governance Council, which is comprised of representatives from each member school district. Collectively, members of the SELPA determine how best to meet the needs of the students with disabilities with SELPAs in the region, regardless of where the student resides, the size of the district in which the student is enrolled, or the amount of funding the district received. So, with that said, the SELPA structure was enacted to allow school agencies to capture economies of scale, offer programs efficiently, and compliance with the laws and regulations, and lessen some of the administrative burdens on teachers and district office staff, and most importantly, assure that every local student with a disability has access and receives services which he or she is entitled under state and federal law. The major concerns we have regarding the recommendation to allocate funds directly to each school agency is that by default, allocating funding directly to school districts would eliminate 88 of the 130 multi-district SELPAs, which effectively decimates the safety net for small and medium-sized districts that depend on regional structure to help pay for services for their students with disabilities. Allocating special education funding to school agencies rather than to the SELPA does not address the many fiscal issues facing the program, with the most significant being inadequate state and federal funding to pay for increasing costs to operate special education programs and provide related services to children with disabilities. While the Public Policy Institute of California report acknowledges that the state and federal special education funding has not kept pace with increasing costs of special education, changing the systems to allocate state funds from SELPAs to school agencies will not remedy the deficiency. In fact, it would mask the local unrestricted base LCFF funds for school agencies to spend to backfill the lack of state and federal funding. So, our district represents 3,500 families whose children are served by local special education programs. Their ability to learn and succeed affects students and society as a whole. These children and youth range from those with learning and or physical disabilities to those with the high intensity conditions like autism, hearing impairment, and emotional disturbances. The number of children with these high intensity conditions is increasing rapidly, and autism has increased dramatically in the past 15 years. And the cost to provide these appropriate education is high. Our CAC opposes any effort to dismantle the current special education local plan area SELPA governance structure and proposals that it would provide special education, and proposals that would provide special education funding directly to school districts instead of the existing SELPAs that were formed to ensure all children with disabilities within a region have access to appropriate programs and services. We believe changes to the structure would result in many unintended consequences, and it would be disruptive to children and families. So I could go on, but I will stop. So I'm asking you guys to support our CAC and our special education department in maintaining the SELPA as is and not bringing the money to local control where the county would, therefore the money would go to the county and then it would siphon back to our school district and we would lose some funds, but also it would go into a pot. And we already have gen ed versus special ed, and we put it all together, and if it looks like special ed is getting more money, it'll look like we're encroaching even more, which we have tried to work very hard on keeping those over the years to take that away. What's the word? I don't know what word I'm looking for, but anyway, we've worked really hard to show that we are gen ed first, and that it does cost more for special ed students, and I just don't want mixing the pot of money to cause this uproar again within the gen ed families. Also, we're meeting, there's a meeting, the Advisory Commission of Special Education State is meeting February 22nd at 1 p.m. at the California Department of Education room, 1430 North Street. Please, if you can come to support our district and our SELPA, I would appreciate it. If not, there's letters that can be signed and I can give you the information. And the state budget will be adopted in June. So right now it's imperative that we move forward and our voices be heard. Because with what's happening in federal dollars and what's going to happen with special education dollars in the future is so uncertain. And I feel like special ed is getting a double whammy right now between SELPA in our state and then the federal. So please support us, and CAC will go away. So CAC is a part of the SELPA.
Can you email us the details of
Yes.
that meeting?
Yeah, I will. So I'm asking you guys for your support at this time. Thank you.
If I could just share regarding this, that if it does go to the county and then it is redistributed, that we will be held out of compliance if any other district in the county has something that is out of compliance.
Right. So we'll all end it together. And we'll all be, the whole county will be lumped together. So,
Thank you.
So is there a resolution that the board should adopt or,
No.
I didn't mean to scare you with resolution like
Not tonight.
I believe that support of the CAC, they're certainly working on something like that at this time. Yes, thank you for asking.
But if it'd still be important to have it before the budget is adopted.
Correct. Alrighty. Business items. So the procurement of a new wireless network infrastructure. Dr. Meyer.
Yes, I can share that. We started a pilot at Northgate, which has an unusual configuration for a building, and so with all of the concrete, the waves bounce off, and so it's hard to sometimes get Wi-Fi in that building. And as we now move into the second phase of the pilot, we're now going to use this Wi-Fi technology for the rest of our high schools, and the next step will be to go to the middle schools, and then after that we will be looking at high use elementary schools as needed. And we have not heard a real need or any kind of problems with use at elementary. So we have continued to have that at the high school and middle level because they're outside of the classroom a lot more.
Any questions or discussions about this? Nope. Yeah. No presentation, okay. I think we need a motion.
Madam President, I move the board reporting that. See, this one.
Getting too late for you, huh?
It is. Madam President, I move that the board approve item 18.1, awarding of contract to Dasher Technologies for the Aruba wireless networks.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a second.
So for the record, I think we need to indicate the source of funding.
Yes, I understand it was one-time monies from 15-16 carryover, and that it had to be determined, Nancy Jr., on an original document, but now we have found that that will be the funding source. Thank you.
Like that it's listed and then it says plus tax.
Sort of enjoyed that. It's a big tax bill. Yes.
And that passes 500. Okay, on to the next. Okay, create job description and position for speech, hearing, and language specialist / pathologist to 207-day contract. Any discussion, or do you want to? Okay,
Just special thanks to our negotiation team that I think we have a few members still here. Actually, they're all here. If you're going to sign up for the negotiation team, you're
stuck here.
You're a hard worker. And I want to share this is extending the year, so we're not re-advertising for summer school. And it is an information item, and it is part of our committee work.
Okay. Do you have any questions before it comes back to us? All right, moving right along. The next is create a job description for position for lead school counselor.
This again is part of the committee work, and it shares that there will be 0.20 FTE out of a full-time position that will be used for developing academic programs within the counseling department. And you'll see other lead positions within the future job descriptions.
Madam President, I move that the board approve item 18.3, create job description and position for lead school counselor.
It's actually for information.
Okay.
But
Just
say
for
that.
that.
We appreciate that.
I'm ready to
You're
do
ready.
that. I'm ready.
Haven't
I'm
you
ready to go.
rehearsed it? You're ready.
Oh, okay. We'll save that one for you next time.
Well, anything around counselors, we're ready to go
Yeah.
because it's pretty exciting, actually.
Okay, so we're on to the
It's
next
getting
one.
more and more organized.
Which is to create a job description and position for lead speech pathologist.
Yes, we've had over the last 2 years information brought to the board about the speech language pathologist position and the need for coordination and someone who has worked in that field to help coordinate and train and mentor future speech language pathologists. And this is also an item that comes to us from committee work and through negotiations, and it will be brought back at the next board meeting for action.
And the next one, to create job description and position for school nurse liaison / coordinator.
Yes, this is a 0.50 position. This is someone who will be working on scheduling, helping make sure that all of the students' needs are met with our high need students, and coordination of contracted nurses as well. This position is part of negotiations and will be someone who will help mentor and coordinate LVNs, SEAs, and RNs.
Very good. And this doesn't reduce the number of school nurses we have currently? This is in addition to?
It's in addition to.
I want more.
Okay, 18.6, request to approve the job description for custodian traveling and increase full-time equivalent funding for the 2016-17 school year.
As part of our need to have a substitute, yet the constraints that come with having a substitute, that you can only work so many days, etc. This is a position, actually it's 5 positions, who will rotate, who will address needs when we have vacancies, leaves, etc. And also will, in a sense, be a roving team for high need areas as they arise.
The next one, increase work year for school counselors to 195 days effective July 1st, 2016.
Yes, this is adding 5 days to the counseling year, and so they will work with their schools to see whether it is most beneficial to have them come prior, to kind of bookend, or to be there after to help coordinate summer school.
And this is what the previous motion will resolve. We won't be doing that today for this year, fellas. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam President, I
Yes,
move
sir.
the board approve item 18.7, increase work year for school counselors to 195 days effective July 1st, 2016.
Second.
All right. We have more movement rapidly.
So this is retroactive?
Yes.
Means that.
Spread over the year. I want to thank my years of charades.
Okay, that passes 5-0-0.
Oh, look, we don't need to go to 11:30.
We almost.
I'm really excited about this one.
Okay.
I really am.
It's a good finish.
I wanted to share, as we're looking at bringing up all of our campuses and we're creating a all-encompassing project list that as you have asked for, there are certain things that have timelines that we have to meet, and this is one of them. We brought up YB in College Park, and we did their turf. And then that same year, Mount Diablo High School had their turf and also had a track. And Concord High has already started to work on their fields for their project. And so Northgate, just to keep all of our children equitable, they have the next oldest turf field, and certainly they're all used and flattened. And so this will be the next step towards doing this, and the bid is brought to you tonight, so we can work to do our best to find that 1 month that's available that we can, or 1 week really, that we can turf. I think it's at the end of May. And so this is a recommendation to move forward with the last of our fields.
Madam President, I move that the board approve item 18.8, turf replacement for Northgate High School.
Second. Any discussion, questions?
I have a question. I recall that some of the fields at Northgate High School were achieved in collaboration with the city of Walnut Creek. Was there a requirement to discuss or bring this forward to the city?
No, because as I understand, it is another field that they share that they have for soccer practice, but we are meeting with Walnut Creek. I see Mr. Holland out there looking forward to it this week. And so we will be meeting with a member of the city council, and we're going to share this new information.
So the list will get longer.
Yes, it's gonna be a long list that we can only meet about this subject, but it'll be a good list.
Yeah. So there's no.
Go ahead, Mr. Woods. Did I cut you off?
No.
So there seems to have been in the past some inconsistency in the turf maintenance, that certain schools did a much better job. And so I was hoping you could just address, since this is a very large sum of money especially multiplied by 5, and then in some instances even greater investment at certain campuses. Just how we're going to maintain the turf and what kind of the procedure is and how MNO is looking at that.
Well, I can do my best. When we first put it.
Or if you could tell me that you're going to make sure that it's.
We'll absolutely make sure that it's maintained. We did have, when we put in the first 2 fields, we noticed that there were machines that were used for fluffing up the turf. That's not the term they use, but they definitely were not using it, and they were not, due to our cuts that we had in custodial. But now we have increased landscaping, and this is part of that in addition to the work with maintenance and operations. So we will be putting a standardized requirement for these very expensive investments to keep them as long as we can and keep them in good shape.
All right. So. Excuse me, Dr. Meyer, can you tell me who seconded this?
Jansen.
Thank you.
I would just also second Mr. Lawrence's comments about maintenance, because I discovered one of those machines buried in a equipment closet and black pellets flinging up off the turf and hitting kids in the eyes. So it's good to protect your investment.
And that passes 500. Okay, so we're at, I think we have some documents to sign. As for under future agenda items, is there someone on the board that would like to work with Dr. Meyer and myself to revisit the resolution? And let me just say this, I have no problem fighting for something, I have no problem staying late, but I've seen the result of signing executive orders in a rush manner hasn't been pretty, so I just want to make sure we take our time. And I feel like our kids are in good hands with the staff that we have in the schools. So having said that, you want to work on it?
No, but I was going to suggest that Mrs. Mayo would be a wonderful person to do so.
Do you want to? Yes. Okay. All righty.
So,
Yes.
I just want to clarify, because I think there's some possible confusion. What we approved tonight is the resolution as presented and posted, which is, I think there's agreement that it doesn't go anywhere near far enough, but it does make a statement, and I do think, maybe there'll be an opportunity soon or at the next meeting at a minimum to share some of the work that's going on. There are community meetings being organized, or there are things happening, and so we need to make that more public too. And then so the fear about what's going to happen in 2 weeks. Staff already, again, we've been through this before. It's certainly much more intense right now, but there is some guidance that can be provided to staff about what to do in different circumstances. So I don't think we have to feel like the doors are wide open right now.
And I brought it up as there's a kind of a 2-step process in a way. You have the resolution, which is just to formalize the support, and then the second part I said is what comes from, say, the superintendent, which is kind of a calming letter detailing protocol, practices, policies, so that people get the specifics of what the district's already doing, which is a lot, and what the law already provides. So I think you're absolutely right. It's never just done. It's several steps to the process of trying to calm people and reassure them.
And I guess all I'm saying is I think if you're in agreement that could happen now, I don't have to wait for the next more detailed resolution so that I know a lot of staff are asking for that kind of guidance as we heard tonight. So.
Mrs. Mayo?
So, knowing that Mrs. Durkee requested that this be put on the agenda originally, perhaps she would rather have first call in working with you.
That's very ambitious. I'm very comfortable with you doing it. You're a detailed person, and thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I feel happy with you if you're willing to do it.
And I would just suggest that we have the one that was adopted tonight translated into languages as quickly as possible to distribute to the schools.
Okay. Having said that, I believe we are adjourned.